welcome down here.
Thank you.
I know it's been trying to figure out time frame to come down here, etc. Has been a little bit, everybody's fucking busy. But to be fair, it's kind of a good thing because I needed like a few months. Yeah. I'm so busy right now that it's like took a little bit of chaos to kind of level out.
I always like to talk to you because your brain operates at a level that's very smart and stuff. You're not going to be able to receive this, but you operate at like you're a knowledgeable fella, you know? And so I always feel like the dumb guy with stuff, not in a critical sense, but like I'm a lot simpler of a process with some things.
Yeah.
You know, where you have a plethora, so I always enjoy it, and I figured since you were doing it, like I support you, so I support whatever you're doing, you know, and I don't mind talking.
No, I appreciate it because this whole thing is just for fun.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, I figured why not, because no one's kind of doing stuff like this per se, and it's more about just what I want to do as opposed to like having a specific direction.
Yeah, that's how I do everything.
I don't have like a set schedule or like, you know how like some of the majority of this type of stuff, it's set up in like a format. There's no format. That's my format.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I've been listening to podcasts since like 2011.
Yeah.
And like obviously Joe Rogan, like I started with his and a couple other ones, and all of them are no format. Like that's the only stuff
successful
I enjoy.
ones.
Yeah, I mean they used to have a couple where they would like do like something like a exercise in the podcast, like we're gonna go over current events or something like that. But no matter what, the best ones are just a conversation, and that's what's interesting. Because then it's soothing when I'm like working. I can, as long as I don't require it. I go back and forth between music, and podcasts, but you know, it's just something. It's like it's like being in the room in a conversation, like just a fly on the wall kind of thing. And that's what's nice.
Yeah, it works really well when I'm doing CAD work.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there for just like hours and just zoning out.
Yeah.
And it's like that background bits because like you're kind of doing work thinking and kind of, you know, putting stuff down and thinking.
Yeah.
And in between, you're kind of catching tidbits of stuff.
Sure.
And it kind of helps keep like a flow going.
It does.
If that makes sense.
Yeah,
As opposed to just like straight just gnarliness 100% the whole time.
Yeah.
You're kind of like getting like sort of like weird little breaks.
Yeah, it's almost
so meditative. That you don't like over compute or like, you know what I mean? Like just like your brain just gets dead.
Sure.
And so that is definitely a help.
Yeah, and I do that too where I'll I might listen to one 3 times because I'll be just doing stuff throughout the day and then I'll
miss shit.
Yeah, or I'll like hear something and then I'll turn it on again just because it was so good and then I'll hear a whole other segment of it, you know. Just something constantly going.
Mm-hmm. And you're putting headphones in while you're working, I'm assuming.
I consistently wear, like, when I started doing structural steel, well, I did that for a long time, but, like, I had earbuds in all the time. And then I had ear muffs on because it was always, like, cranes and punches and grinding for hours and, you know, all the stuff that makes crazy noise. So I would consistently listen to stuff. And then, like, all my guys, the same thing. Like, we don't have music in the shop. There's no like, there's nothing like some consistent like K-rock. And it's weird for people that aren't like in their groove, but for everybody, it's like I am whatever I'm listening to or someone else. Everybody's in their own mind state, in their own flow or whatever mood they're in. Like if I'm listening to some gnarly rap or something that like you would not see me listening to, which I will listen to, I don't want other people to be subject to have to listen to that, and I don't want to have to listen to what, you know, nobody's operating on the same level. It's not like we're all doing one same thing. So it's like someone should be able to put in their ears whatever is suitable for their situation. And then on top of that, I just believe in protection all the time because you get focused. It's not so much like, oh, you're going to blow your ears out, but it's like the more like you do eye protection, because if you're grinding something and you're doing this because you're just too lazy to put your eye protection on, then you're literally not going to get a good product, or you're going to spend less time on it making it nice because your body is subconsciously too focused on and it's the same with noise. Like if you're guys that aren't like wearing, you know, different types of gloves, and same with like safety or hearing protection, it's the same thing. Like it all takes away from your focus. And then you're not going to get as good of a product because you're not going to be able to like sit and finesse it because you want to just put all your energy into that instead of like, oh man, it's loud, just get this shit done. Because even if you don't feel that way, your body's doing that. Get away from the noises. It doesn't want that. It's the same, you know, with like stuff, you know, if you're just riding the thing out and you're sanding and you don't have like some kind of a glove on to sand, and then you're gonna be like, get it done. You know, how are you gonna get
now? When I was doing the fab work many years ago, I did not have like there was no good earbuds available.
Sure.
So I just had the stuff turned way the fuck up, so it was like loud as shit, you know.
Drones it out.
So that would be I would hear music through my ear protection, and then obviously everybody has to listen to whatever the fuck I'm doing, type deal. And the neighbor that had a woodworking company next door that you know they had lathes and everything, and they were noisy as fuck.
Yeah.
He would come over and complain. That we were too fucking, the music was way too loud. So he would just, you know, I'd see him in like the corner of the shop, and he was an older guy. Hopefully he's still alive, but he was definitely an older guy back then. I'd just see him pop his head in and just do this. And I knew that I had to turn it down, you know?
You don't want that. I don't want that.
So I never had they're like, no one made good fucking earbuds. I bought like a few, and they would last like a week.
Yeah, that was in like Discman days.
No, it's not that fucking old. It was like when the iPod first came out.
Yeah, and they had like those the earbuds that are the white ones that are your typical like Apple things are terrible.
Well, like, is there a fabrication earbud these days? I haven't even Googled this at all.
There's like ones that are like OSHA approved, like that are sound deadening.
There you go. That's what I'm getting at.
But those we were sponsored. I don't even remember the company. Like Joey's like
Squirsh or something.
No, I know who you're talking about, but no, these IsoTunes.
Okay.
And I tried them and whatever, like they're just
because what our industry needs is like a pair that does not get damaged by like the metal dust and then lasts, because you know they have magnets in them, so they attract that dust. Yeah. And then at the same time creates like the sound deadening situation.
Yeah, I don't have noise canceling ones. I just have regular, and they're like athletic, so they're like built to stay in your ears. And I don't like the ones where they're that plastic thing because it hurts my ear. Like even the standardized iTunes ones, they hurt your ear like crazy. I like walk out of it not feeling good. So
I don't think they're designed for active users in that fashion.
So for a while, I was running Skull Candies, and I used to have this adapter because Apple switched to like instead of an auxiliary, the round thing they made like, you know, they didn't standardize. So I used to go through the little white adapters, like, and I had my drawer, and I collected them like a little rat, you know, and I had like a dozen of those things. But now I have Joey found some really good ones that are like, they're almost like a tactical company, and they're like a olive green, and they run really good. They connect here, and that's it. For a while I always had the cord, whatever. Didn't care. I'd just put it on my shirt.
What's the range? Can you leave your phone in your toolbox?
Yeah, 20 yards, something like that. Yeah,
that's not terrible.
But I mean, I'm always using my phone, so I gotta have it. Like I never leave it at my toolbox.
Does your phone ever collect like the dust and shit and fuck them up?
Not really, dude. No, I mean I haven't like blown it off, and I don't run a cover on it or anything. Yeah. And I have good results, so I don't know.
But you keep your shop very clean. Relatively speaking,
in the eye of the beholder, sure. Like
as an outside observer going to a lot of shops. Overall, you're very clean in that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a studio kind of thing. Remember, I jokingly call it a studio, but it really is kind of a studio.
Well, you're expressing artwork.
Yeah.
You're not building, like, you're not specifically focused on race car. Like, get it done for the race, etc.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
way different mentality.
Totally. And when even, you know, like when I went to Art Center, that was a big, like, part of stuff that was ingrained in my like, work is like being somewhere where it's super bright, fluorescence. Like,
that is okay.
Super bright.
You do a good job of that too. That is the other thing too I noticed. Because I am struggling with light at our new shop.
Yeah, and I run old school fluorescence because they don't have a refresh rate like a LED. So with cameras, sometimes like I even notice on some of my Snap-on lights, the frames, what's it called?
FPS starts fucking because of the lights.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Interesting.
And so
I didn't even think
the
about
fluorescents are fire. They never have problem on video. But Art Center was open 24/7, and they would give us like these tremendous workloads every week of homework where they knew that we'd have to pull all-nighters no matter what. Yeah. Like every kid. So the campus was open 24 hours. So when you go up there, all the big studio rooms, they were big, maybe.
Define up there.
Pasadena, right, the Rose Bowl.
Okay.
Art Center campus.
Okay.
It's a big, beautiful, badass. It's insane looking, dude. It's like a architectural masterpiece.
What's the name of the school?
Art Center College of Design.
Oh, it's literally named Art Center?
Look it up. Look at the outside. Art Center College of Design. And just look at the exterior, but it's all black and white. And it's all their studio rooms are like 30 by 60 or so, and they're lit the fuck up, you know.
I've never heard of it.
It's it's a prestige design school for automotive design primarily.
Art Center College of Design,
Yeah.
Pasadena.
Yeah. And just go to image search and it'll probably show the outside of it. But it rips. It's that's their South Campus. There it is. That's part of it right there. That's part of it right there. That's the bridge you drive under right there. It's all super modern. But what I'm getting at is the studios there, we'd have to spend, like, we'd work, you know, I'd go in there to finish some of my classwork every week, and there'd be like 25 of my classmates in there up all night.
Yeah.
Working on stuff. But it was very clean, blank walls, and then it was just all fluorescence, and it was lit. And the thing that's really beneficial is, like, if you have to work, it doesn't discriminate like, I think it affects you when you're doing work if you know, like, morning time, nighttime, even, you know, when the sun's kind of affecting the shop in a way.
Yes.
Where it affects your actual energy of how you're working and your dynamic. So if it's just complete fluorescence and it's just bright,
the Vegas effect.
it's always sure. Yeah, exactly. And then on top of that, if you're building stuff that's going to go out and be in the sun all the time and be seen, why the fuck would you work on it in the dark? Like, and then you miss stuff. Like, if you're blending things and you're trying to find, like, good surfacing on aluminum and panels and everything, and then you're working in a dimly lit area, and then it goes out, a client gets in and it goes and lives in the sun all the time, and you miss stuff, and it's just, there's room for error. And then I always, like, press on the guys too. I'm like, anytime they're, like, under the car or they're inside the car, I always come up, and if they're missing, I go, where's your light? Where's your light? You know, and I'll make sure there's always light, so there's just consistently good work coming out like that.
That is fascinating, because that is such a different way of approaching that. Because, like, it's not normal for a lot of at least the industry that I know of and exposed to some degree, like the exact things you're referring to, like underneath the vehicle, in the vehicle, things like that. They're dead zones, regardless of the exterior light.
And I just, again, it's like, if it's like an area in your house, if you don't, like, if it's not easy to get to or something, it gets neglected. Like, no matter what, you're not going to get that area clean as good or whatever the reference. It's the same thing, you know? It's like, I think it's the same thing even with being healthy and working on cars and fabricating cars. If you're like some big ass dude and you can't move around well, guess what? The underside of that car's gonna suck. Maybe it's not gonna suck, but it's gonna look different. You're gonna have two different things, you know. Like, there's ways to get, like, optimal results still without just, like, doing something really good. You can just help yourself.
The reality is, it's a physical job
for sure,
and the corners will be cut, and
people
will get tired,
complacent
of their going to have to get back under the truck one more time is going to start to deteriorate to, like, get that one piece just as good or just a little bit better because they're fucking hurting or this or that. Like,
old fuck it comes about right there. You know?
And there are guys I've met that are, like, big dudes, and I'm like, fuck, like, you're building trucks, like,
same.
It's a little rough. I'm like, oh man, you know, I even when I started to gain a little weight when I was doing fab work, I'd feel it. Yeah, like when I was at my heaviest and stuff, sometimes it was, like, brutal. Totally. And I knew it too. Like, it just starts to bog you down. Yeah, 100%. And just move. You know, it's important for the guys too. Like, they, you know, I always stress too with, like, work and you know, even if you're, like, newer at fabrication, you don't have to. Even if you're not, if something's taking you a long time, and you got to go to the sander and you got to fit something or something, you know, the abrasives, just get there fast. You know, go from point A to point B quicker, and then you can still take your time to do the thing, you know, but just move with a purpose, and it all fits in. You know, it's funny because it's like, I think a lot of the fabricators have the same build, like majority, and it's very similar looking to a BMX, like a pro BMX rider. It's like the same kind of, like, you're not skinny, you're not fat, you're like, but, like, you know, like, it's an interesting thing, but there's a consistency I see there. Yeah. And a lot of them live off of sugar and caffeine.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, that's the diet, because there's the days and the nights all blend together.
Yeah, that's a tricky thing. I drank Monsters I started Monsters, I think, when I was, like, 25, and then I stopped them at 36.
11 years. How many a day?
2 a day, green ones, like the pure guys.
Yeah.
And then at lunch I'd drink a large Dr. Pepper or a Coca-Cola. You know, like just scumbag style.
I can't say I was any better. I was definitely doing lots of energy drinks.
Yeah.
For many years.
I noticed it. I think because it's a big thing. I've made huge changes with my health, within the last year or year and a half, and one of those was like with my kid, like playing soccer and stuff. I'd get home and I've already worked 12 hours or something, and I get home and then he's like, Dad, you wanna kick the ball around and pass the ball around out front? And like in my head, I'm like, but I'd go do it no matter what. But I started realizing when I was running, I was like, oh, dude, I'm like really out of breath. Like I'm out of shape. Like I've been sprinting around for 5 minutes, and I'm like breathing. My heart is breathing harder than my body right now. Like you know, and then I started thinking, I was like, what is this? Like why is this happening? And I started looking at sugars. I heard something on Joe Rogan, and he's like, a gram of sugar is like a sugar cube, right?
Yeah.
And now I start chucking all the numbers together, and I'm like, the Monster's like, I think it's 39 grams or 49 grams, and there's 2 servings, and then I'm drinking 2 of those, and then I'm doing this, like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm having pyramids, like multiple pyramids of sugar every day.
Have you ever done like a plaque score or anything?
No.
Testing.
I've got all my blood done.
But I'm talking about to see like if there's any build up or issues.
No,
like that's what sugar was.
But I stopped. The bottom line is I stopped.
That's step one. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I stopped, and then things started getting better, and then I started exercising, and things started getting better. And now I like wake up easier. I work harder, and I work out, and then I go to bed easier. And even if I get shitty sleep, like if I get 5 hours sleep, I wake up charged again, you know, because there's not that nitrous hit like going through your body all the time, you know.
Well, they convinced our generation that like fat was bad and sugar was like totally fine.
Yeah.
You know, and that's like the most insane thing ever. Now, knowing what I know now, you know, it's like fucking insane that was the thing. Cause like I grew up on sugar.
Oh yeah.
You know?
I was just riding dirt bikes and BMX bikes and Gatorades and Cherry Cokes and just.
And
McDonald's.
Those are like supposed to be like sports drinks.
Yeah,
and they're like
fucking
sugar.
Yeah, no, I remember I had like 6 cavities. 6 or 8. I had 6 or 8 cavities at once in the dentist when I was like 15 or 16. And I didn't
that's fucking charging.
I didn't drink a lot of soda. I brushed my teeth.
Yeah.
And he's like, what do you like? Do you eat candy? And I was like, no, I just drink Gatorade all day. And he's like, well, Gatorade's way worse. He's like, Gatorade's what did it, you know, because I would drink like a red Gatorade or a lemon lime Gatorade a couple times a day.
Yeah. So, I used to do blue.
Blue?
Yeah.
I like the pea yellow one and the red one. That was the fire.
The pea yellow one's pretty fucking good.
Yeah, cold.
Yeah.
Insane.
Like that's what I grew up on.
Yeah.
In sports and shit. That was like a normal thing. That was supposed to be like healthy.
Yeah.
It's just fucking like it's just insane that like you know what I mean? They're gonna find out like that's all that shit causes cancer.
Yeah.
You know, and well, I mean, stopping at our age is obviously much better than continuing on. And, like my parents are still like bad. My dad's really good, but like my mom is still like fucking 12 sodas a day. Like,
yeah, it just depends. Because I've seen like some old dudes, like they'll be smoking cigarettes and be 95 years old.
That is true.
You know, killing it.
Yeah.
Getting some. So.
And not a single fucking cell of lung cancer.
Yeah, totally good. Like, just out riding a horse, you know, like fuck it. Just
still doing like marathons.
Yeah, whatever. So I don't know. I just for myself, you get kids and then you're like you care more.
It changes.
It does, yeah.
And you can't explain that to someone until they have kids. There's no like, there's not, you know, you can't tell someone and try and get them to understand what that whole thing changes until they're in that position.
Yeah, and it's really a gift. It's the kids thing. Even like I still was kind of just being a degenerate with with Logan, and then having Enzo, like he's almost 2, and having him, man, something clicked again. Where like because I feel like I missed a couple years with Logan when he was younger, just like my mom passed away.
Yeah.
And I gave up on life for a bit, and I just got in like a crazy depression, and I missed some things. Like I was there, but I wasn't there. Even if I was.
I know exactly how you mean. I was fighting bullshit while John was 1 to 2.
Yeah.
And so I missed a lot of time.
Yeah.
With dealing with health bullshit.
Yeah.
And now that I have Hannah here, it's weird.
You get it again. You get that second hit.
Yeah, and I feel like I have the ability to like kind of correct that.
Totally.
But I mean, it wasn't necessarily my choice to some degree, but like, yeah, I could have been more in the mental space or been more paying attention, but I wasn't.
Yeah, and that's the same thing. I you know, like I was even available with Logan, but like my mom passed when he was a year, and a week before he was a year old. Mm-hmm. And like I lost her in a terrible cancer situation in hospice, and she rotted away, and I like watched her. But my mom was my everything. I didn't have a dad, any of that. So she was, I mean, essentially the bad term is she was wiping my ass until she died. You know? But really she just helped me with everything, and I'm a late bloomer to everything. But man, when she passed, my mom was like I would always give a reference before Logan was born. I would always be like, if my mom dies before me, I'm killing myself. You know, like this shit like that. Yeah. So thank God I had Logan, but it's still, I gave up for a bit just on everything. Just
self-destructive.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I still like had a house and I still had friends in this, but internally I was just diminishing myself. And same thing with, you know, like I was there, like I even like taking Logan and riding him on our pit bike track and doing all this, and I was there, but I wasn't like actually like embracing the kid, like really enjoying my son.
So you're physically there, but mentally you're fucking gone.
It's just and like I just was moving fast, and so now with like Enzo, I knew, I was like, I felt like I missed those times with Logan. He doesn't feel that because he was younger, and you know,
and he doesn't know any different.
Yeah. But with Enzo, I got after it. Like even with Taylor, when she was giving birth, I was like holding her and squeezing with her and breathing with her, and I cut his umbilical, and I like held Enzo while he got circumcised, and like, you know, I just every single step, like to just get some, you know, because I needed to make sure I took that in, you know. And now these little things are like I feel like Taylor and I, like I always, like they sleep in the bed with us, and I'll wake up in the morning sometimes and I'll be like, Taylor, this is insane. Like, you know, like it feels like like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory when you have the golden ticket and you don't want people to know. Like it's a little like a prize. Like no, don't let them know. Don't let them know that we have this. And it feels like that with them. Like we have just this little gift, and you can't, going back to what you said, you can't press that stuff on people with the kids. And you know, a lot of people, like even when they're like, I got buddies that are my age, and they're like, fuck having kids. I'm not having kids. I don't need to, like, I'm happy. And I'm like, I'm not going to be this guy. You know, in my head, I'm like, little do you know, like you could have a whole nother book of life that you can enjoy. You know?
Yeah. You can't explain that to people. Yeah. And like, I got friends older than me that still are not on the kids thing. Like not even fucking close. Yeah. And then I have a lot of other friends that, you know, have gone down that path. It's just very, very different how that stuff transitions through life, and people change and those things. And it's like we weren't really, Natalie always wanted a family, etc. I did too, but like we were pretty late, relatively speaking. Yeah. Like the vast majority of our friends that have kids, all of those kids are like in fucking high school. Sure. You know? So we're 10 plus years behind like all of her friends that have kids and stuff like that, and a lot of my friends that have kids, other than the friends that just don't have any fucking kids. Sure. And they're still going out and doing all this stuff that like we used to do too, to some degree, but like I get that too. But at the same time, like I would never change what we have and where we're going, because it's like totally different. Totally. And I do feel like I wasted a lot of time fucking off. Yeah. But like somehow I still ended up on this path.
Well, you gotta just be, you know, that's the trick. I'm always afraid, because even with that stuff, like those thoughts, I'm late to everything. Yeah. I'm fucking 10 to 12 years of like just of my life. Just I'm late. Like people with houses and boats and material, this and that, and like.
But none of that means anything.
I know, but it's an interesting gauge. But you know, having kids, we had Logan. I think I was 27 or 26 or something. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, thank goodness! Because if I was like, even Enzo right now, like I'm gonna have to go through this when he's 10. In 8 years, and I'm whatever that math is, 34 or 44 or something like that, 45. So that's scary to me, because not only like the thought of not being able to see maybe his kids or something, like I don't know where that goes, and then on top of that, having the energy, you know, waiting until you're older.
I was thinking the same thing. You know, Natalie's 40. Yeah. So that math does not play out, and it's funny because like her mom had her first kid when her mom was 16. Yeah. And so we're like way the fuck behind. Sure. that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's totally different. Like my parents are like, they're in the same sort of age bracket, even though Natalie's the youngest out of her siblings. But I do think about that too. So it's like I got to do things correctly now, so that I can see their kids and stuff like that.
Just that's the thing, is I'm just trying to live longer. You know, I'm gonna just be healthy for that purpose. Taylor, so same kind of thing as Natalie. Like Taylor's mom had her when she was 18 or 19.
Yeah.
And you know, at first you judge that, and then I'm like, dude, that's the ticket. Because now, like Taylor's grandparents get to hang out with our kids. Like they get to see their great grandkids like all the time. They're in their late 70s, and it's awesome. Like it's a beautiful thing, you know.
That's gnarly. Yeah, that ain't happening on either of our sides, unfortunately.
Yeah.
My grandpa is still alive, but he lives in Michigan, and that's a trek. And so we're trying to make it back soon to some degree, but like it's not like what you're referring to.
Yeah, you know, it's crazy. It's an anomaly.
Yeah, especially these days per se.
Yeah,
but well, you know, that is also one of those things that's like you can't think about that too much because it throws everything too far out in the future.
Sure.
That you're like worrying about stuff that isn't really here yet.
I think about it, but I can pull back. You know, too far.
Well, part of the other side of it too is like, am I doing things correctly now, like health wise?
Yeah.
Because like, do they really fucking know what they're talking about, or does anybody? Because like everything keeps changing.
Yeah.
Like the shit that was considered like totally fine and healthy 10 years ago is like, oh yeah, that causes cancer today, so fuck that.
Yeah.
And you know that everything that we're doing now is going to change.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff is OG stuff, and then some stuff just like technology and whatever chemicals and things haven't been around long enough to have a longevity test anyway. So
like at some point, you'd be like, well, hopefully technology will catch up by the time I need this shit to be like dialed so I can fuck off to some degree.
I mean, it depends on if they're making money on helping people live longer or not, you know, so.
I think that there is, and I think that they're going to focus more on that because the longer they live, the longer they can be on prescriptions.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, healthcare.
So part of that is called, what's it called? It's a metric where they can stack prescriptions over the lifetime of people by keeping them sick but not dying, if that makes sense.
Yeah, just floating them.
Yeah, and they're able to stack prescriptions in a manner like they know if someone gets on this prescription, so to speak, that the probability that they're going to end up on this, several more prescriptions in the next 5 years is like much higher. Gotcha. So they can project revenue stacking over the life of people, like if they start on a PPI med or if they start on a cardiovascular med, stuff like that, and it's all worked into their models.
Yeah, and
they know how that pans out, but they don't want you to die. They just want you to continually be on pharmaceuticals, and that's become normal to some degree. And I think that's just fucking insane.
Yeah, I don't know if we should even get into that stuff.
I know you're going down.
That's a dark hole.
Yeah, I know way too much about that. Unfortunately, I've had a lot of time to sit in fucking hospitals and read shit that's not fucking good, but it just makes you like want to hate the whole thing and the whole system and everyone that's dealing with it. Yeah, and it's the bottom line is everything that you do or health in general, you can't listen to the doctors, you can't listen to that. You have to take control of everything that you're dealing with and be responsible for every single aspect start to finish.
Sure.
Because they don't give a fuck.
Yeah, it's almost just textbook stuff. It's not really tailored to your health and your optimal health.
You're just another like cog in the wheel, so to speak, of the system.
Sure. To
some degree. And, at the end of the day, if you don't take the reins and deal with it, they'll like doctors don't tell you to eat healthier. They don't tell they have no correlation to inputs is what I would say. So like inputs would be like everything you eat, everything you take in mentally, stuff like that. Those are all inputs. And so obviously everything that's an output, i.e. the problems you have, etc., health or mental, all of those outputs are directly correlated to all inputs.
Sure.
And Western medicine and the pharmaceutical system basically says that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
There's no correlation to that.
Yeah.
You just need X, Y, or Z pill, and you need this procedure, that procedure. And when it's like, wait a second, why can't we back up and see what's going on with all these inputs?
Sure.
And I'm not saying like eating. It could be something as simple as like how sleep. It could be something as simple as like stress with work. All this other external stuff that can just fucking crush you.
Yeah, and it's all dependent on each individual. That's the thing. There's nothing, the standardized stuff like that doesn't work because every single person is completely different in all their life. You know, every single angle.
Everything is like that. And in other words, one Tylenol pill doesn't fix every person the same way.
Sure.
So like that's why, like I've run into that with all my testosterone bullshit because they fucking put everyone on cookie cutter shit. Yeah. It just fucks all these dudes up. Yeah. And so I do my own thing, and have basically pissed off a ton of doctors in doing so because you know they're not okay with that. Yeah. Like basically, I'm designing my own protocol, and so they don't like that, and some of them have like cut me off and shit like that. You know.
Wrong doctor.
Oh yeah, I've gone through the fucking gauntlet of these guys.
They saved you. If they cut you off, then they just saved you your time.
Yeah. But the point is like there's no such thing as fucking one size fits all for anything. Yeah. And the fact that they try to steer anything in life is steered in that direction is just preposterous. Because that's not how people or humans are. That's with everything. So why would it magically work for anything health related? Yeah. You know? Mm-hmm. But you know, and that same goes with like the workout sessions, training sessions, how you train, what you train. You know, there's no get rich quick, so to speak, or lose weight fucking quick sort of bullshit without any sort of dire consequences, and the inverse side of that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of that with a lot of stuff in life, period, is a sacrifice thing. You know, like a do to get. I went to boarding school when I was 17 or so, and and a lot of it was like their motto was like do to get. You know, like you need to put the work in to get this, or you know, you need to sacrifice this to get this. And I think a lot of things are like a trade off like that. You know, big and small, different scales.
Well, a lot of society or sector kids, like we were somewhat our generation age group was trained to be like fucking, you know, instant gratification to some degree, like with social media becoming kind of started with our generation, and that instant gratification sort of like dopamine hit as completely like throwing that on its face of like, you know, the whole, you know, putting work in towards a goal to get to end result, so to speak, and having to be patient with that it's like deteriorated that mentality from like, you know, the root of it, which would be like as you're a moldable and shapeable younger individual or child, and then carrying that forward. Totally. Because like you see it too, like guys our age or whatever, they're still like that same. It's like everything they fucking do is literally just instant gratification focused. And then they don't understand why they either never get stuff done, they procrastinate everything, their goals never materialize, they're always unhappy, stuff like that. Because they're just, all it is focused on that instant gratification push, when the reality is to achieve certain things, patience is like the fundamental cornerstone. That's huge. You see what I'm getting at? Totally. And people completely have skipped over that. And I think social media, et cetera, is like a really bad part of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it all contributes to immediate things. And I learned that too with my, like, I've been seeing a therapist for months now, and same thing, like instant impulsivity, instant gratification, like in a deep-rooted shit, you know, like just from maybe ADHD and things like that, but same thing, I notice it now. Like, I try to train myself on that stuff. Yeah. There's habits you can break. Yeah. You know? And if you're just aware of things like that, then it goes far.
Yeah, and you have to, like I was saying, is you have to take control of all of that. There's no one can tell you or give you a pill or do any of that bullshit. You have to be the one to be able to recognize that, to correct course and keep moving forward, while simultaneously understanding that, like, if it sucks today, it sucks tomorrow, etc. But like, there's going to be a time it doesn't suck. So you have to be patient for that time to come, as opposed to continually harping on yourself that tomorrow is going to suck too. Yeah. When you're not understanding that, no, you're going to have to go through the suck to get to where you want to be, or whatever that specific goal is. And that the problem isn't that it sucks. The problem is your patience doesn't exist in a format that's relative to your goal.
Yeah, you adjust your outlook on that.
Yeah.
Get a better result.
And so once you figure that out, then it's like, it makes sense, because you're putting the pieces to the puzzle as opposed to the whole fucking puzzle is being displayed all at once.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is like I'm saying, I see people struggle with that all the time, because I deal with business owners literally all day long, every day. Yeah, that's all the people I deal with, and you can tell when some of them are, like, I feel bad Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can just see it, like, oh, fuck, bro. Like, you are going down a rabbit hole that's not going to go great. Like, you know, and, you know, to some degree, some guys just got to let it ride. Let them do their thing, you know? Because everyone wants to run in a direction, this or that, when the model, if it's broken, it doesn't matter how hard you work or how much you hustle. If the model is broken, like, you're still going to get a broken result on the other side of the table. You're just going to be a lot more fucking tired and probably a little bit more angry.
Sure.
And then the model's still broken, you know?
Yeah.
And so if you don't correct that or don't understand those things, like, it can be a rough road.
Totally.
And then people have that sense of instant gratification that's doubled down with the fact that you have this sort of really fucking fake bullshit with social media that everyone thinks everyone else is fucking killing it, doing this and that, blah, blah. And it's like, bro, that guy's fucking bankrupt.
Yeah.
Like, don't be following what that guy's doing. That motherfucker owes so many people money and blah, blah, and this and that. And it's just like, you have to keep in mind that everything on social media or whatever, and it's worse now. Well, I can't say that only because of my age or where I'm at. I'm seeing that it's individuals utilizing social media as a sort of benchmark to how they view their business relative to other businesses, if that makes sense.
Well, business and I think just self-worth and, you know, personal.
Well, that too, but
life.
I'm talking about on the business side. They're making assumptions about certain things based on what they're seeing, which social media is obviously propped up in a way that is not necessarily with a reality.
Yeah, you paint it how you want.
Yes. And so now that it's come full circle to some degree, because remember 10 years ago, it was not really a business thing. Like, in the industry or in business, so to speak, there were a few people dabbling with that. But, like, now it's like, I found a concrete pourer through fucking Instagram.
Oh, yeah. I get most of my business through Instagram.
We get all of our business from Instagram.
Yeah.
I don't do anything else.
Yeah.
And it's not the same. Like, if I needed someone to do fucking post-tension repair, like, there's a fucking dude that does, his whole page is post-tension repair. Did you see what I'm saying? It's that dynamic didn't exist 10 years ago where it does now. And so that creates a whole nother slew of problems for small business owners who are stuck in this sort of, I call it treading water philosophy, where they're basically circling themselves, treading water every month and wondering why they never get anywhere because they're so busy chasing this instant gratification based on some sort of perception of where competition is.
Yeah.
That's so, like, not even fucking close to reality.
Yeah.
And so they just sit there and tread water all day long, every day. And they don't understand why they're not getting to where they want to be. And then the ones that actually do it are the ones that don't even fucking, well, they don't care if they're on social media or they're not having any sort of presence whatsoever.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are legitimately getting this stuff done in that fashion.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a very interesting thing, as opposed to, like, the social aspect of this individual looks that good through filters or whatever, and so, like, they want to look hotter or they want to look buffer or whatever. I'm referring to on the business side now, because it has come full circle to where businesses are involved. It does the same thing. It creates it creates this perception of success in business that you fucking damn well know doesn't exist for the vast majority of those guys, because small business as a whole has very little success rates.
Yeah,
It's treading water mostly.
Yeah, and the classic thing too with, like, the off-road industry is it's still like people have enough talk going on and stuff going on where that only gets you so far, you know, with off-road at least. But with other stuff, I mean, it's not like there's a Yelp and stuff to read, you know.
That is true. And the good news too is that with the industry, it's also exposed a lot of the bullshit with put up or shut up to some degree.
Totally.
So you can only get away so far now.
Yeah.
Before, so it's like a double-edged sword. You could blow up pretty quickly, and you can get a lot of attention pretty quickly for X, Y, or Z in your facet of the industry.
Yeah.
Which, I'll go back to the industry part, but the point of that is, like, that shift is a double-edged sword that can burn stuff pretty quickly. And then at the same time, now you're trying to, like, you know, run or duck your tail or whatever, and you see those guys, like, disappear off Instagram or stuff like that, and then they'll reappear somewhere else or whatever. And then the guys that are solid or more stand-up, so to speak, they're not getting called out on the gram. They're not having to block people left and right just to, like, do whatever. And then the other side of it, what I was getting at with the industry part, is now it's actually an industry. You know, when I first started, it was literally like fucking off.
Yeah.
There was no industry, so to speak. You know, it was you're paying your rent in cash. You don't have a lease. Like, there's no insurance. Like, the vast majority of fab shops were not shops.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you remember Desert Lab?
Yeah.
From Desert Rangers?
Desert Lab.
You remember Desert Lab Vixen? Club 18?
Sounds familiar.
Okay. That's just random. I just remember because I've been meaning to poke you about GMR and stuff.
Oh, that's all old shit, yeah.
Yeah.
That was on DR.
Yeah. But I know I just, it's funny because I ran, and this is just a tangent, but I ran into, he messaged me. He's like, "What's up, man? Do you remember Desert Lab?" And
God, that sounds so familiar.
dude, yeah, well, it was like one of the top, like, you know, Helton was on there, and like Greg Gagnon and those guys, and then and Bonzen, you know, and like Miss Bonzen was on there back in the day.
Well, that's when that was like a pseudo avenue for business gathering and shit talking.
More shit talking and showing your projects.
Yeah.
But it was funny because this Desert Lab guy, his name wasn't that, and he's like, "Yeah," he's like, "Do you remember Desert Lab?" And I was like, "Yeah," and I said, "I don't know." I just spoke what I needed to do, and I was like, "I don't know if you're still with her, but I remember Desert Lab's girlfriend's tits more than I remember Desert Lab."
Oh, in the C18 shit?
Yeah, like it was like he was his wife or something or whatever, and like it was like this big thing, like her showing her tits, you know, and like I'm sure my chick even knows about it, but I remember I asked him, he's like, "Yeah, not with her anymore." I was like, "All right, cool. My bad." Sorry, I still remember that. But
yeah, I do remember DR. Because there wasn't like Instagram yet.
No.
So there wasn't like a good avenue to like fuck off on.
Yeah, well, Desert Lab or Desert Rangers for myself and like Race Desert, like the show and tell forum, those were like my favorites. Those were because you get to see builds, like you will follow build threads, and that was my favorite, dude, when I was younger.
And that's all gone.
Well, I think Race Desert still has show and tell. They still
it's not like the heyday.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I even remember, like, when Dump posted that thing from Terrible Herbs.
Yeah, I remember that, 100%.
That set, like, a shockwave through the industry.
Yeah.
A shockwave.
Yeah.
That sent a ripple effect that was never duplicated to some degree. Yeah. Because that was, like, a first times, here's how we're not fucking around bullshit building stuff. Unfortunately, the trucks didn't work very well, but that's irrelevant. You know, I'm talking about just the fabrication side. Yeah. And so... Unfortunately, the Race Desert side of things, and remember there was Desert Rides as well.
That was it had like that Euro font, like, you know, like it was all like drawn out red.
And those had pictures of old school shit.
Well, there was a lot. There was Desert. I would frequent every night. I go on Desert Rangers, Desert Rides, Race Desert, show and tell. Like that was the shit. Yeah,
and it was where you got to be exposed to this stuff without physically showing up at a race or physically going to someone's shop.
Yeah, that's where I saw most stuff. Period. It was then. And then that's where I had, like, I put my Beth build on there, like the Super Crew.
The white one? Yeah.
And I had it on F-150 forum too, and that was like my following, like my little, like my cheer squad when I was like by myself working on that thing, so I didn't like know any shops or anything.
Yeah.
But that was I miss all that stuff, you know. Just as far as
it was like a weird cult following.
Yeah,
everyone kind of knew each other, but not really.
Yeah, and then they'd have like desert not cleanups, but they'd have meets, like a Desert Rangers meet,
DR meets and stuff.
That was sick.
And then they got like segmented.
What do you mean?
Well, it'd be like the DR meet that would be like more focused towards like Long Beach, and then there'd be the DR meet. Okay. You see what I'm saying? So kind of they also had like some of the regional segmentation. Yeah, sure. Like the Hells Angels fucking chapters. Yeah. Just the DR kids going to In-N-Out Burger and talking shit.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't think I went to like one of those.
I think I remember I went with Johnny Branch to Desert Rangers meet when Instagram was still a thing, or when Instagram first started, like a couple years after. But I saw it on Desert Rangers. That was the only one, but that was in Ocotillo. But that was just about thinking about industry and where I've seen things go and come from. And now there's a lot of money in race trucks and parts and things.
The industry has grown a fuckload. The interest in the industry has grown a fuckload.
Sure.
You know, back in the day, there was a handful of builders realistically. And also, $300,000 in a truck, $350,000 for a trophy truck was considered baller as fuck.
For sure.
Now, that's considered, you're not even competitive.
Yeah.
So don't show up.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
And the volume has changed tremendously to where now it's legitimately a career a complete career path for people.
Yeah.
Like what I do didn't exist before.
For sure. Yeah, that's what I was going to tag on too, is the resources. Like now, I think that's part of why there's so much, is because it's more available. They also see how the work's done. They see what's going on because of socials and things. Mm-hmm. But also, like, you know, CNC machines were kind of rare. They were not as like accessible or attainable. They were not as attainable.
It was insanely expensive to do anything in that genre.
Yeah, same with like laser and all that stuff. Yep. Like Burke with Alpha, like Burke started pretty early.
I would say Burke started pretty late.
Really?
That's funny. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because they started when Travis came out of Elite.
Okay.
And so before that, you know, there was a few cut houses per se that were dabbling in that stuff.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Burke would be. I don't know. What I'm saying is later, because like back then, before Burke was doing anything, there was like you had R&I and Elite, and they kind of cut for the most part all the shit.
I don't even know those.
R&Is where Craig Hall worked before he did Hall Designs.
Gotcha.
So he was, and I don't remember specifically when he transitioned out or he started to go on his own, but he was working there, you know, doing, I think, file organization and stuff and cutting and stuff like that for the guys that were sending stuff in to get cut at R&I.
Gotcha.
And then, you know, obviously branched out from there.
Sure.
And then Elite Laser was Jeremy, who has since sold it. And Travis was the manager at Elite Laser, who went and helped Burke and them get everything going and running. And I think Travis is still at.
I think he is too.
Okay, yeah. And so I remember when they started that whole thing.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I just think that's part of the expansion, is just like there's a lot more. There's tooling and, you know, information and, you know, attainable things now. You know, like there's a lot more laser cutters and processing, and now
a fuckload more.
SolidWorks is a completely huge thing.
All of that became more accessible and easier to deal with. You know, like I learned or self-taught to some degree. A buddy of mine kind of helped me, but I venture more in CATIA than I do SolidWorks, to be fair. But
I just say it as like a Band-Aid, you know, like it's like a, you know, like you'd say a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
You know, even though it's a brand, like just SolidWorks, like the CAD. Call it
CAD.
There you go.
And now there's a lot of kids that have gone pretty far in a short period of time.
For sure.
Also, you have to keep in mind, like, when I was first learning that stuff, YouTube didn't exist, so, like, you couldn't YouTube how to do certain aspects of certain things. Mm-hmm. So, like, if I needed to figure out how to bend a tube or do this or draw this certain plate or whatever, like, now you can fucking YouTube that shit, and, like, there's YouTube tutorials in SolidWorks for, like, every aspect. So it's, like, pointless to go to fucking school for any of that. Yeah. Just buy the program and sit on YouTube.
Yeah.
And within like a year, you're going to learn at least the majority of stuff that we do. Mm-hmm. Now, the problem is none of that teaches the fundamentals, how to set up a chassis, how to lay stuff out, things like that. That's a whole different series of conversations. But as far as like being able to draw plates, draw tubes, and that bits, like YouTube has all of the information you could ever want to learn.
Yeah.
But it's also like you have to put stuff in. Mm-hmm. So it's only going to be as smart as whatever you're inputting. So if you're inputting a platform that's garbage, like you're SOL regardless, no matter how pretty it looks and renders.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
And so that's the catch-22 of where we're at in this like weird gray area, because it's very easy for guys to go really quick into sick boy render status on Instagram, but the fundamentals is where it's like
totally
really root stuff that you don't like. There's no class, there's no school, there's no book. There's only doing it and learning through time and failure.
Yeah, that's how I learn everything.
Yeah,
I fuck up everything once at least.
I mean, that's just the reality.
The hard way.
No one comes out of the gate and designs race cars and goes and wins. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
There is a series of failures for anyone that's been competitive or even remotely successful in racing to even get to that point. And I mean a series. It doesn't. It's not magic.
Sure.
And people, unfortunately, there's again that illusion that it can happen and things like that can be like pretty instant to some degree. And the reality is, it unfortunately doesn't work like that.
Sure.
And fuck, I mean, I've been doing this since I was over 20 years now.
So when did you start GMR?
That's a good question. I got to start doing some math.
What did that stand for?
G Machine Racing. We were building pro touring suspension for Mustangs.
Okay.
Out of my buddy Louie's uncle's garage.
What city?
Manhattan Beach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then you did housings, right? You built housings, GMR housings.
We did, but at that point, Louie kind of had branched off into doing.
The chaos was getting crazy.
Yeah.
I heard your kids playing and screaming, and then I was like, I wonder if Logan's part of that. And then I heard Logan like playing and screaming. Like, all right, we're good, perfect.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to think of the time on this because like Louie owns Customs Factory.
I don't know what that is.
Supercar shit.
Okay.
He does supercar design bodies. So like the that thing that they just did that set records.
SSC.
Yeah, he designed that. Mm-hmm. He designs shit like that. So he branched away from off-road to some degree and went into more of like the body and surface design. I would say would be like his specialty.
That's awesome.
If you were to segment out and not like a CAD guy, but he can do chassis stuff. He's done a ton of stuff like that per se. But I would say the majority of what he does today would be considered surface design.
Yeah, surfacing. Yeah, I mean, like even with like the Range Rover thing we have going on, like that same thing, and even with the exotic body, like I started talking to people and they're like, you're gonna have someone that's a surfacer, like a surfacing.
That's
guy.
what Louie does.
And then I started to realize there's different angles here. Like it's not just like a CAD guy. There's a surfacing guy.
Yeah, it's just like everything. It's just like you're not gonna. If you're an expert in sheet metal, that's not the same dude that's building the motor.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in CAD, that is the same thing. Like even in CAD with other aspects, like I'm not a gearbox guy. I'm not designing gearboxes in the computer. Mm-hmm. In theory, I could. It'd probably take me a fuckload of time to figure out, and it would be wrong.
Robbie's doing a lot of that.
But
he's multi-catting, you know?
Well, Weissman has something to say about that.
It seems impressive to me.
But the thing is, if it's like I'm saying, it goes back to fundamentals. You have to have certain fundamentals in place in certain avenues. I know where my avenues are to where I don't really branch out appropriately, or I go and get someone that does that.
Yeah.
And then I bring them into X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
As opposed to trying to be like I do everything.
That's what I do. I outsource any information I need. You know. Mm-hmm. I mean that's the joy about the world. Like, and I feel like that's how you get the most optimal product. You know, you shouldn't just try to be a one man is an island style thing. You should get the perfect candidate for everything.
It unfortunately creates. The reality is just there's no human that can do that in anything, and let alone these sort of complex fucking structures. Like, it's just not possible. Yeah. Why do you think Elon Musk has thousands of employees? You know,
probably a lot of reasons there.
You know,
but I get it.
And the point is, like, there's avenues to every single thing that you are either good or bad at, and to be successful at anything you do in life, you have to understand your weaknesses and your strengths, and you have to manipulate everything around you to favor those.
Sure.
Instead of like trying to go against the grain, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, and try to be like the handyman that can do everything, because now you're okay at a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's there. You know, it doesn't work for these types of situations when you're trying to be to a certain caliber, win races, things like that.
Yeah.
Every single team you talk to, a successful organization, etc., there will be a network of individuals.
Oh yeah.
That are behind that specific championship or that specific avenue to make that what it is, as opposed to like the one guy can create everything.
Totally.
Same with hot rod builders. I mean, it's no different. Yeah. Just like the dude that's going to be doing the paint, that guy is not the guy that would be welding the chassis.
For sure.
You know,
yeah, and you don't any motorsport or any kind of thing usually has a team like that. You know.
Yeah, everyone has a specialty, and everyone has a niche in theory. Well, I'm saying in theory because like obviously not everyone operates that way. But the successful ones, it'll be very segmented. And it's just like, well, yeah, like all the stuff we're doing with towers, like I'm not touching the wiring or that shit.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to bother. Like we're having James Lynn do all that because he's the guy. Same with like the plumbing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now I can put the stuff in the computer where it needs to be and mount the bits where they need to be.
Yeah.
But like I ain't fucking wiring it.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And arguably I'm not going to do much plumbing either, to be fair. And when I say I mean managing it.
Sure.
I'm more or less passing that off. The other stuff we're doing in-house, which I can manage appropriately, but I know where my strengths and weaknesses are. Yeah. And there's guys that, walk circles around me in several of these avenues, hence why I'm not touching any of that.
Yeah.
Or I'm going off of what they're telling me to do to some degree and then manipulating accordingly.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, instead of pretending or trying to play that all-around game. And then you end up with, unfortunately, something that's not necessarily great to some degree.
Yeah.
Or it's like a constant rodeo. Like you're fixing everything just to get to that stuff. But, yeah, that's like a sideways tangent from another tangent.
I live on tangents.
What was the tangent? No, you asked me a question. What was the question? Oh,
GMR. That was where I started.
Yeah, but you asked me a specific question. I'm trying to remember what year.
It was in the either the late 90s or the early 2000s.
Oh, yeah, it was like 98, 97. Yeah. When
based off Desert Rangers.
When we were starting stuff, that was when we were dicking around with stuff. And I think Louis went into aerospace after college.
Gotcha.
Which I want to say was like 03 range.
I just, like the last one, so when I worked for Jamie at Raceco, Chris had like a little spot next door to Jamie.
Yeah.
Chris Allen. And he had that Mustang in there. That's like his famed, like, long-term project is this Mustang. Mm-hmm. And I remember it had like a GMR housing or something on it. Like
Who's Mustang?
Chris Allen. Allen Motorsports.
He had a GMR housing?
Yeah.
I designed a link setup in that car.
Yeah, no, he had some special
Brian
shit.
Designed the front suspension.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that he was all tied in.
Yeah. But that was when I was like not dealing with anybody. Mm-hmm. He found me randomly. And I was still working with a few guys, but that's when I had I was helping Nate at that time, and I had started a steam boiler company. I was completely out of the fucking industry because I hated everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was trying to like not do anything motorsports related.
Sure.
At least on the face.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
More like just for fun.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I remember that. I was living in San Pedro at the time.
That's cool.
And Chris came down. Yeah.
He called me to finish that thing like 2 years ago.
When was this?
To finish it?
What year is this?
To finish the car when I saw it.
When you saw it?
2014.
Yeah, because I was back from Arizona and then I was in San Pedro. That would make sense. And that's when Blitzkrieg was changing.
Okay.
At the same time.
Yeah.
I was helping Nate, etc., and that's when they moved out of that shop over on way the fuck out there off the 91, Loma Linda.
Gotcha.
Move everything back to Huntington.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was interesting. I always have that correlation.
That is funny. That is a very small world to some degree. Mm-hmm. And I believe Chris worked for SpaceX.
He did, yeah. So that was the same time he was working for SpaceX, and then he had a small little like third of a slice of a bay. Mm-hmm. And then he'd like come in. He was doing stuff for Rebel off road, like he was welding, like MIG welding shit. So he'd come at night and like just blast MIG welds, and then he'd have that car in there, and he had all his tooling. He was very concentrated. Like I think he cleared out Anonymous, and then he like put it all into that little spot.
Okay.
So it was cool though. Chris was always working on cool shit.
And he is now.
Well, he's prepping cars.
No, they're doing building too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know to the extent.
I know Brian's been building that Dodge single cab.
Something like that, yeah.
And they got like a MIG welded, like a F-150 or a Raptor or something. There's a couple things going on.
I wonder if he still works at aerospace.
No.
He's not working at SpaceX or anything like that?
No.
So he's full-time in the fab?
Yeah, full-time. He preps BJ's truck. So
that's true, Kyle Kraft.
Yeah, I think that takes most of the meat and potatoes is the prep for that stuff, and then like he runs fab too. But I think he's simplified. He just likes to do the prep thing, and that's that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought for a while I knew he was doing that double time bullshit, where you're working during the day a fuckload and you're coming back at night.
That's when
to shred for several hours.
That's when I was at Jamie's, yeah, because I'd like. He must have started early, and then he'd get off a little, whatever, at 4 or something. Then he'd get there. I was still, like, on the tail end of my day at Raceco, so then I'd see Chris show up, and then he'd, like, just go in there and just MIG blast for hours or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. Yeah, at that point in time, there was no GMR stuff I was doing at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the car was all dusty and just chilling. I would go geek on it every once in a while.
Yeah. And that was, again, even when I was drawing that stuff for Chris, that was like way the fuck past.
Sure.
I was even doing anything GMR related.
Yeah.
Because I stopped all that stuff at least California stuff in 2010. Yeah. And then I was in Arizona for a little while, and we were manufacturing pro touring stuff, hub assemblies, housings, things like that. Front uprights, Corvette-based hub assemblies.
Yeah.
And then came back to California because that business partner I had did not work out great.
I hear that with business partners.
Yeah, I'm done with business partners.
I've seen many men fail with business partners.
It's a unique situation for it to be successful.
Yeah.
And it's a lot different than institutional investors, if that makes sense. Yeah, and then I was helping Nate with Blitzkrieg because he had another individual involved, and oh God, I can't remember his name, and I feel fucking horrible about it.
You shouldn't. You're okay.
And,
safe.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember his name. Nate will tell me eventually, but and at that time period, I started a steam boiler company. So I was like so burned out of the industry that I had such a distaste for the industry that I was going like way the fuck out.
Sure.
And
I've thought about doing that stuff just with every angle, like besides absolute necessities.
Yeah.
There's a lot more resources you can use like that aren't in the industry, and I don't like the industry, and there's better, bigger things to do outside of it. You know?
Well, like when I stopped doing motorsports S stuff and went into, at that time I had the steam boiler thing, I instantly was making like 10 times the money. It's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. And
I get that, and that was okay, but then I was like, this really sucks.
Yeah.
This is like a real job. I fucking hate this. And I was like, I gotta figure out a way to not do real job stuff anymore.
Sure.
You know? And then at that point, I also bought a restaurant and a catering company. So it was like real, like normal people work. And I got burned out on that.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, well, that fizzled, unfortunately not by my hand. That was a legal battle I couldn't afford to continue playing.
Gotcha.
And so I unfortunately lost that deal because we got flooded by an upstairs tenant, and it just destroyed fucking everything. And it burned a lot of time and capital to fight in court, and then it just fucking went to the wayside.
Oh, man.
And then, and it's funny because Natalie and I were just getting together when I was closing that shit down.
Yeah.
And we look back now, and she's like, well, at least you didn't have it during COVID.
Sure.
That would have been fucked.
Totally.
The whole thing would have imploded. But when I bought that place, I bought it from a guy that did not know business per se, struggling. But he did pretty well on the other aspects of it. But for obvious reasons, like to run a business, like you can't just be a good face of the business. You actually have to know the numbers. You got to
be involved.
Yeah,
for sure.
And so I turned the whole thing around. And when we got flooded, at that point in time, I had like a 14, 15 month stretch where I averaged 25% roughly revenue increase every month. So that's fucking insane for the restaurant and catering industry. Insane. And that's even more disheartening to being like killing it and then fucking get flooded.
Yeah.
And then the landlord turned out to be a total douchebag because he didn't like want us in there. So he drug out all the construction for like 13 months. Yeah. So when you're a restaurant catering operation and you get shut down for 13 months, you're fucked.
Yeah, that's what my mom used to. We had a family business called Marie's Gourmet Catering.
Yeah.
Pasadena, it was the same kind of thing. I grew up like being pushed around in like the huge dough bowls, like on a roller and stuff. I remember the catering days.
What kind of food?
I don't know. American food. I was young. They 86 my mom out of it when my grandma passed away. The rest of the family like bad blooded my mom and just cut her out of it. Yeah, it was called Marie's, and I'm sure they did like a lot of stuff for LA and weddings and stuff. So I don't know if it was specific. I want to just say it was American food, but I don't even know if that's the right context to say. It wasn't, any exotic food.
Yeah, see, my mom, when I grew up, she had worked for a big catering operation.
Yeah.
That would do stuff for, like, nuclear power plant, like, big fucking facilities, and they would run all the cafeterias and stuff that were there and stuff like that. And so I grew up in a lot of that aspects, too. And then, when I was doing much better, with my steam boiler business, etc., I bought that restaurant and that operation for her and moved her up to where my brother was because I was in Atascadero.
Yeah.
And she was working in that, etc., and that was going to be kind of like her baby.
Sure.
Because she was like, had a bad situation, how she sort of pseudo/fired/retired. Like the owners of that company kind of fucked her over to some degree. Kind of not really legal, but whatever. The point being is she knew a lot about that stuff and her heart was in that stuff. And so like that's why I got that. And then it was going great until it wasn't, as a lot of things in life unfortunately do.
Sure.
And it was a hardcore barbecue. And so are you familiar with the Atascadero, north of San Luis Obispo?
Yeah, I've heard the
Paso Robles?
The city, yeah.
Okay. It's
area.
Wineries.
Yeah.
Fuckloads of big boy wineries. And so like catering there was huge. That's what that trailer is out there.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's a barbecue
it's
pit.
A big old, yeah.
That's the world's largest barbecue pit. Yeah. 120 square feet.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck is this thing doing?
So it'll hold 2,500 pounds of tri-tip per grill top, and there's 2 of them. So it'll do 5,000 pounds of tri-tip at once. Yeah. And so
what are you doing with that thing? You just holding on
big
to
caterings. Oh fuck. I can't sell it. It's too fucking big.
Clearly.
So right now it's in the process of being cut in half.
Oh, okay.
So that I could sell it as 2 halves.
Yeah, totally.
And even then it's still like fucking gnarly for that type of, I mean, think about it. It'll do 2,500 pounds of tri-tip, even in half.
Yeah.
So like you need a lot of fucking people to legitimately do that. But
a lot of people that want to eat tri-tip too.
Well, we did other stuff too, like ribs and stuff, but ribs take more surface area, so you can't do as many pounds of ribs. You see what I'm getting at?
Sure.
It's a space constraint.
Yeah.
And so, with that said, if you know anyone that wants to buy a fucking big barbecue trailer,
I think you need a Texas demographic will be really good for this.
No, it's Central Coast. Remember,
Really?
Texas is smoking. This is what would be considered San Luis Obispo. So this would be more like Central Coast style.
Yeah, it's almost Pismo-y.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I had won, during my restaurant days, we won best tri-tip in the county multiple years in a row.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, when I took it over, I designed my own rubs and all that stuff, changed all the processes to make it all like hardcore barbecue, no fucking bullshit. Yeah. Nothing's ever frozen, fresh every day. And, you know, and so during that time period, I built it up to where for 2 years in a row, we were considered number 1.
Yeah.
And then got fucking fizzled. But the point being is, on the catering side, the restaurant was there to support the catering.
Sure.
The catering was where all the money was. The catering was where the bread and butter was. The restaurant would break even at best. You know what I mean? And that's just, restaurant's a hard game.
Yeah,
But catering, you know, you're doing big fucking chunks.
Yeah.
No pun intended, like chunks of fucking meat.
Yeah.
You know, thousands of pounds of meat for the big events.
Okay.
And so that's where you start to revenue stack pretty fucking quickly.
Yeah, for sure.
And because you're basically cooking it all at once, that pit, when it had both racks going, each rack is 10 feet by 6 feet, it only takes 2 guys to operate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The barbecue place right here is not that good.
Jehc's?
I said what I said.
No, it's horrible.
Okay, cool.
It's
like,
it's a joke.
Fuck that place. Yeah.
The guy that Jehc himself is a Elsinore local.
Okay.
And so he built it up and it was doing better. Still, I don't know. I never thought it was that rad, to be perfectly clear, but he sold it to this new guy. And the new guy has like gone the other direction of like commercializing it to some degree and pulled back what little Jehc had of like hardcore barbecue-ness, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
And so if you're trying to be that standalone hardcore barbecue guy, like there's certain things you can't deviate from and then still pretend you're hardcore barbecue.
Yeah. Tarnish the brand.
But I'm also like not the good one to talk to because I was like hardcore as fuck barbecue.
Yeah.
Like ours was open pit chunks of fucking white oak, like old school way.
Yeah.
No fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
Like you can't, there's no math to make the barbecue. Yeah. There is only feel.
Sure.
So like the guys that run the pits, it's feel. So it's not like it's done when it at this time or it's done like this. No, it's done when the pit master says it can come after pit.
Yeah.
That you can't, that's not like something that you can commercialize to some degree.
Yeah, your soul's into that one.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes. And so, like I'm saying, I'm not a good one to judge because I'm too hard on that aspect because most of the places are not as hardcore as I was.
Sure.
So like the guys I look up to would be like Franklin's, stuff like that. Yeah. or you start getting into some of the Texas stuff or some of the other Central Coast stuff that are still doing it more of a traditional way, which is the hard fucking way. And that's not everyone, unfortunately. Yeah, totally. So I can't even go and eat barbecue at other places because I'm too fucking bad with that. I'm just like, fuck this.
I'm not like I wasn't hungry, but I'm kind of hungry. Yeah.
Oh. Have you gone to Jehc's? Is that how you fucking know?
This one right here?
Yeah.
I went there like years ago. Someone recommended it. I think I was at Branches. And like I was like, where's a good barbecue place? And I had my chick with me and everything. And they're like,
where's Branches?
Branch used to be off Bundy Canyon.
Okay.
Like Wildomar-ish area. That's kind of like the borderline. Or Menifee. One of those.
It's right there.
But, no, I just went there and, you know, I'm always down trying new spots. And it just was not up to, a lot of barbecue places are not up to par.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Is it's like, if you're into real barbecue, it deteriorates the vast majority of places to where like it's just not worth it. In my opinion.
I used to watch a show of there was a barbecue like a competition show.
Yeah.
Forget what it was, and it was really good.
I've been on a few shows on like Food Network and shit.
Yeah, I think this one was maybe on like History Channel or THC or something or whatever. The Learn TLC.
There you go. The Learning Channel.
Yeah, that's what you just said.
Yeah.
Okay, copy that. Yeah. So, I remember stuff from there, but that's it. So I kind of gave up on barbecue. I haven't had good barbecue in a long time.
When the last time I did per se is when Natalie and I went out to Coda and Circuit of the Americas, and in there that area of Texas has got a few. Salt Lick probably being my favorite out of them. I think Natalie likes Salt Lick too, if I remember correctly. And there's about 6 or 7 in that little chunk that I would say you could frequent that are pretty rad.
Yeah.
But again, we haven't been back to Coda for a while. Last time we went was for the super bike race. We might go again, but she's so fucking burned out on that stuff. It'd be hard to convince her to go.
Where's Isle of Man?
Isle of Man?
Yeah.
That's in Europe. That's not here.
Is it in Europe? Isn't it off the coast somewhere? I don't think it's in Europe.
It's not here.
No, it's not in the U.S., but it's somewhere. It's not as far as Europe, I don't think.
I am gonna Google this.
I would love to go to Isle of Man for sure.
Isle of Man TT. Let's see.
I think it's closer to us than it is to Europe, but not in the States.
I feel like I should know this. You should. I don't know this.
If you're dropping super bike race guy, if you're going super bike races, you
No, I'm married into the family that does this. I don't fucking know anything about this stuff. Of course, it's not even giving me like where is Isle of Man. No, it's a totally different thing. The super bike racing is like not what I'm accustomed to, and like it's a totally different fucking world. It's like a real industry, is what I say. Because like the race teams are structured like a business.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist in off-road.
Yeah.
Event locations, Isle of Man course, Isle of Man. Where the fuck is this?
I bet you it's not in Europe.
Castletown, Douglas, and Ramsey. And British summertime. It says Douglas, Isle of Man. It's literally Isle of Man. This is not telling me shit. The fucking Wikipedia page does not explain where exactly this little island is.
You got to DuckDuckGo search. It's probably because you use Google.
Yes.
They don't want you to know.
Well, they probably hear everything I say.
Exactly. And they're like, fuck this guy, man. We're not.
But yeah, this is in Europe. This is an island over somewhere over there.
Yeah.
Somewhere by the Redcoats.
I looked it up a while back, but I don't remember exactly where it was.
To be clear, that's not like superbike racing. That's a whole different time trials thing.
Yeah, it's point to point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I just think of street bikes. You know, hauling ass. That's it.
I call it that. I've been corrected many times, and having to learn a lot about their industry and the norms and things like that is totally fucking different than the racing and stuff I was exposed to or used to. Sure. And so I think a lot of that, they have a nickname for like the amateur stuff. Squids. That's what they call them.
Okay.
Squids.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
I've used that term before.
Okay. I didn't hear that until I've heard it from their family.
I used to use that on, if people were like riding bikes and there were squids. There's squids for BMX or squids for moto.
Okay.
Yeah.
But see, I never did dirt bike stuff very much as a kid. My parents were heavily against that shit.
Yeah. I was well supported with that stuff. I almost got just didn't graduate high school from ditching school to ride dirt bikes. That was like my number one thing I did. I didn't do drugs or drink. I just ditched school to ride dirt bikes like 3 days a week.
For me, it was surfing, skating, snowboard.
Sure.
Yeah. But I grew up on the beach, so that was normal.
That's your geographic right there.
Yeah.
Totally.
You're, a minute and a half from the fucking water, you know?
Yeah.
Even though we would still drive to go get better spots per se. Because I lived on 2nd Street in Hermosa, which was like, meh.
Yeah.
So we'd have to go up to Porto North, or we'd have to go south.
Gotcha.
And it was not like walking distance. So once we got fucking the ability to be mobile, then you got to surf wherever the fuck.
Sure.
A lot easier instead of having to get like your mom to drop you off X, Y, or Z.
Totally.
And that's where I would waste a lot of fucking time. Or the skate park.
Sure.
Hermosa built a skate park when I was just entering high school. And that was like, again, another thing to fucking waste time at.
Sure. Yeah.
And not really heavy in drugs or drinking. It was always around, but I was always more into physically skating or stuff.
Yeah, the extremes.
Some of the guys I hung out with did lean a little bit more into drugs stuff, to be fair.
Yeah.
But I think that's natural with any of the action sports-esque stuff relating to high school kids in general, Or at least it was. Who the fuck knows these days? I think everything's changed because it doesn't seem like the action sports stuff is near as popular.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I see a lot of kids that just look kind of like pussies, I mean,
well, the beta male mentality
for it.
Beta males become cool.
Yeah, and a lot of like permed hair, Like my barber told me that kids are like consciously going in and getting perms. Like male kids are getting perms, and you'll start to see a lot where the kids have like a fade, and then they have like curly like gnarliness going on, and a lot of that they're doing by design.
Yeah, you got me.
Stay woke.
You got me, dude. Yeah. Well, that's even fine. When I had the GMR days, I had a blue mohawk for a while. Yeah.
I spiked my hair like up until I was 25. And then I like buzzed it for a little bit when my mom had chemo and stuff. I like shaved my head, and then I just was like, what am I doing? Should I keep spiking my hair? And I've thought to even start spiking it again.
Yeah.
Whatever.
You could do that and then frost the tips.
That would be 90s shit. Yeah. I used to put sun in my hair in the 90s.
There was a guy that I don't want to disclose who it was on a podcast, so to speak.
Yeah.
But he had a trophy truck built by a friend of mine. And we would call him Frosty Tips.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And that.
He would roll in with that straight up fucking Sugar Ray-esque
That's cool.
Frosty Tip bullshit. And that was it was after that was like cool.
What year was this?
Oh fuck. Well, I don't want to say that. That might give it too much away, but it was
well, that's a good reference for the hair. At what level this guy's fucking if he rolls in with hair like that?
Oh, God. This was after I came back from Arizona range. So this is going to be 2012 to 14 range.
Okay, so it's still semi-doable. Because there's that one guy that does all the food stuff, right? He's all bleached, frosted tip.
Are you talking about Guy Fieri?
Yeah.
Dude, it's still like a 90s thing.
Yeah, no,
Early
but he's
2000s.
stuck. He's on that,
Yeah, but at the same time, like, I just remembered something. This individual, I think, ended up going to jail too. But anyways,
going to jail too?
He did go. I think he did because he got in trouble.
Going to jail too, like both of them went to jail.
No. Fieri didn't that I know of.
No, I thought you meant your trophy truck guy or something.
He did. Yeah.
Okay.
If I remember correctly.
See, that's gonna pinpoint more. That's gonna make more markers like.
Not
that.
Really.
Okay.
This guy was hidden enough. I've never seen him pop up since.
Hey, can we talk about Robert Acer?
Oh, the ES trucks.
Yeah.
Old school. Well, no, I call it old school, but Yeah. And that's the funny thing is I'm referring to that as old school because that chassis is older, you know, in the grand scheme of things or what I would consider normal.
Yeah. So to like even to wrap this back around even more, when I was 19 and 20, my buddy Andrew Neal had like this little shop we opened up by Duffco in San Dimas, and Neal Motorsports, and I remember like I was building my Explorer out of there, and then Spencer Lowe hit me up, like he's
back to building trucks again.
Yes,
on his own.
Well, here, just ride this out. So Spencer Lowe hit me up. He like knew me from Laverne because I grew up in Laverne, and then he hit me up and he's like, "Hey, I see." He's like, "You have something special. I see that I want you to come work for me." And I was 19, 20. I had a grinder and a chop saw, MIG welding, no TIG, and I went and saw him for the day in Riverside at that, like they had a spot where he had the building with Porter and ES. You know, it was like the end of a cul-de-sac, and it was like a big ass building, and it was like split in half. It was like Spencer's stuff, and then like Porter ES or whatever.
Well, Porter back then.
There we go. So we'll just so Porter was there and Spencer was there, and I remember I walked in there and just to feel things out, and I was so intimidated because I was like, dude, I don't know how to use an Apex wheel or like any of this shit. I don't know how to use a bandsaw. And he's like, so how do you like it, blah, blah. I was like, oh, it's cool, okay, you know, blah, blah. And I like committed to starting or something. I just flaked super hard, didn't communicate, nothing, because I wasn't able to use my words at that point. And I just felt so uncomfortable, like thinking about all the tooling. Like if he would have been like, you can use a grinder and you'll be fine and blah, 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 and you're only going to, you know, tack but I bailed. And then at Off-Road Expo, Eric came up and he like had this guy next to him. He goes, hey, I want you to meet someone, or I brought someone for you. And then it was Spencer Lowe, and he's like, dude, what's up? And he's like, I just wanted to come over here and congratulate you and tell you that I'm proud of you.
Wait, back up. What's the time frame difference between these two things?
Big time.
Okay,
2000,
that's where
2000. So I was 18 in 2003. I graduated in 2003 from high school. Okay. So 2004 or 5 or so, and that was the last time I talked to him. And I know he had some rough spots and then all kinds of shit, but bottom line is, then I saw him a week ago. Yes. You know, Off-Road Expo, yeah. And he's like, dude, I just wanted to let you know. And I told him the whole thing. I was like, dude, I'm sorry for bailing, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I was just so intimidated and this and that. He's like, it's all good. He's like, I'm proud of you. Like, I love what you're doing, this and that. And then like, he went and showed me his truck and the whole thing. Yeah. You know, it's cool. Full circle.
But that is interesting to see.
And that's the other tangent. So we started talking. I asked about the Acer trucks, and he gave reference about like shortly after that was when those were being built at that same facility. I think the guy's name was Jeff, the Acer fella. His first name was Jeff, maybe.
That funded it?
Yeah, the guy, the helmet guy.
Yeah, I don't know if he was the one actually funding it.
Yeah, so
I know he was driving.
I know all the...
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know how these situations, it's not as clear as that could be the guy funding it. There could be multiple aspects of funding it.
So he married into...
Because there's a lot of money to do what he did.
No, we'll check it out. So I'm pretty confident in this. I'm like 80%. So...
Fair enough.
85 to 87. This guy, this Robert Acer, the people know, you know, like the figure.
Racer.
Yeah, I know. R Acer.
Yeah.
Yeah. He married, so he was a bodyguard for this married couple that were the Pillsbury Fortune, like derivatives of the Pillsbury Fortune. Mm-hmm. And he started boning the wife, and then the wife got a divorce from the husband, got all kinds of money, and then he started using wife's money, and he spent like $150 million in 5 years on the off-road program and on the challenge cars, the Ferrari challenge cars.
Yeah,
because he was shipping those things across the world. Yeah.
That shit makes off-road look cheap.
Oh, yeah, a lot of motorsport stuff, even hot rod shit, you know.
Yeah.
And it's funny because off-road stuff is like the nicest fab. Some of the nicest fab, and then all these guys that want the nicest shit and don't want to pay, you know, they want to pay the least amount of money, and it's neat stuff.
But yeah, that's because I'm pretty sure there were 3 of those trucks.
There is, yeah. So there was the one that got turned. That who's the guy down here that worked on that? Oh man, is it Dave Tungett?
Dave Tungett, yeah. He now works for Nestor.
Yeah, so Dave Tungett did, and I'm sorry, Dave, for forgetting your name right there. That was weird. But Dave, he put the air conditioning he helped like make that one like a pre-runner.
Okay.
Because one's sealed, and then the other one is now the Truggy. Was just the race truck one, and then there was another. It was just laser stuff, tubes, lower floor, all that stuff. And then I think one of the Porter guys bought that stuff back and has it now. I was trying to come up on that last little pallet, but I didn't get to it soon enough.
Yeah. I think Billy has that.
Yeah, I was going to say Billy. I just didn't know for sure.
I think.
I
haven't talked to him for a while.
When I was over at Green Army, that's what they were saying.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Him and his cousin? Billy's cousin are building it? Or brother-in-law? Yeah. He said something. I'd have to look at the last message he sent me. But it was something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because last time I talked to him, he was asking about converting it to all-wheel drive.
Yeah, those are gorgeous cars. I love those cars.
I think those platforms don't get enough respect because a lot of people don't understand them.
Yeah.
They look at them as different.
Yeah.
And the geometries put into those, I think, scare people because they're designed to be driven a certain way, and that way is not the norm.
Yeah, you explained this, and I got a boner.
And part of that too is like they are the inverse of what we see for cookie cutter trucks these days.
Yeah, totally.
So, with that said, I really like what they did.
Yeah.
But to get a driver to like that, I feel is a very big challenge.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they have to be driven a certain way for it to be comfortable. And the way they are designed, they feel uncomfortable
until you're driving 10/10ths or something, right?
Stuff like that, and frankly, even at some of the higher speed stuff, they're not designed to be comfortable at 130.
Yeah,
they're a little squiggly.
Yeah,
but that's the trade-off you get for it being nice at 75, 85, 90 through rough stuff, through turns.
Yeah.
So that introduction of the rear steer and how it moves, and the introduction of how the front end is done is totally different than what you're seeing cookie cutter stuff. And there's guys that are really against that stuff. Like Craig Hall is really against that type of stuff. So if you look at like a lot of stuff he designs, it's on a spectrum, it's the inverse.
Sure.
So yeah, again, you'd have to understand what it is or know what it is to truly have appreciation for it. And the vast majority of guys these days, it's just like right over their head.
Sure.
So like when I've talked to guys like, yeah, I'd love to have that truck. I think it would be fun as fuck.
I think they have more value now than they ever had.
Those specific trucks?
Yeah.
Or are you talking about just the mid-engine platform and that?
Oh, that whole style of geometry and layout and mid-engine, and those things are insane to me. They're beautiful, and what you've explained, like as far as the engineering and the geometry with that stuff, seems like a desired thing now.
Like I'm saying, I just don't think it's understood. And when I first saw that stuff, I didn't understand either, to be fair. I do now, but back then it was all just fucking plate and tube mashed together.
Sure.
I didn't understand the complexities behind these little bits that you can manipulate.
Yeah.
And to be fair, Spencer's new truck does share some of those characteristics, although it is a front engine, and so they did take out some of the characteristics that, in theory, would be better for the mid-engine to complement the front engine, if that makes sense, because their goal is 6100 stuff. I talked to the guy that is like funding that, or however you...
Sure.
The guys that are involved, put it that way. And so that platform is like a newer variant to some degree with a front engine that has some manipulation relative to what some of that stuff is, because if you start to look across the board, there's a lot of similarities between what would be considered Porter or original Porter to some degree, and then transitioning over to ES, which was Eric's place, and then obviously the stuff that Don Dale has, so racer engineering. And a lot of similarities throughout those.
How is Dale tied into that?
Yeah, there's some controversy into that, and that's still on Race Desert. So if you ask Billy Gasper, there's one story. If you ask Craig Hall, there's another story. And so...
I bet Dale has another one too.
I'm sure there are. So I can't speak any specifics because it's only speculation based on what I've heard from other parties involved. But they're very, very similar engineering-wise. How that happened or why that happened, I don't know. So all I can tell you is that layout-wise, geometry philosophies were relatively similar until, to be fair, Craig was working with Racer and started manipulating and changing a lot of that.
Gotcha.
Whereas, like, if you still see the ES stuff, because ES sold, so from my understanding, Eric is not, the Wilson family bought it. So even the last set of ES stuff is still very reminiscent of the Porter stuff.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Whereas the Racer stuff now, I feel like has morphed. And I don't know if, like, you'd have to ask Craig specifics, but, like, I feel like he obviously had a hand in manipulating and changing that stuff or transitioning into some different
that makes sense.
Different stuff as well. But, you know, I don't think Don Dell, if I remember correctly, he may have a guy doing his CAD work there, et cetera, or design, or a lot of that could be still from Craig, et cetera.
Sure. And I guess, you know, for my, like, you come from complete, like, I look at a lot of stuff from design and style. And obviously there's functionality tied into that, but you are hardcore engineering, geometry, you know.
More mechanical side,
There you go. So, like, when I say those cars are beautiful, you know, I'm talking, like, all of the style things are done in a way that those guys knew what they were fucking doing. Like, the stuff fucks when you look at it. You know?
It was derived from a day when the fabricators, and I was talking with Mike Robb about this not that long ago. That stuff derived back when fabricators wanted to, or the best way to look at it is you could tell who touched that vehicle based on style.
Sure.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that
and that unfortunately doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So back then, there was a very heavy emphasis on each fabricator, so to speak, establishing a style.
Yeah.
And it was considered rude or faux pas, however you would say that, to steal that style or borrow that style because you knew that was so-and-so style.
Oh, that's funny.
You see what I'm getting at?
They sure don't care now.
Yes. So that is obviously a lot different. But my point being is, if you knew enough about each fabricator individually, you could go to a show or a race, and without talking to anybody, you would know who built that truck or who did what.
Sure.
To some degree. And that has obviously changed a lot.
Yeah.
Guys like me have, transitioned out of that with the cookie cutter aspect to some degree because of CAD work and making things more like that. But what you're referring to is a day and a time where those individuals made it their mark.
I love that. That stuff moves me.
And the other thing, too, is if you noticed, the individuals involved in that have kind of moved forward, like from Porter to ES, etc., that mark is still there. You see what I'm getting at? So, like, that hasn't really left them because it was their mark. It wasn't a computer design cookie cutter thing that just goes to a shop that gets welded up. And, yeah, I am talking shit on myself, in essence, because, like, that's what we do now.
Yeah.
But the point being is that that flavor, or that style that is ingrained in each specific vehicle was carried through because that was based on the individual as opposed to being based on the design.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's been lost for the most part, unfortunately.
At least with race vehicles.
Well, yes. Yeah. With what you're doing, that's a little different because you're legitimately putting a style and touch to the structures to where you can see that come through as opposed to it's just another cookie cutter-esque X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, and I live by that. That's a part of the branding.
Also, the other side of that, too, is you have to keep in mind when that stuff was being done, you were building 1 to maybe 3 trucks a year.
Sure.
Maybe.
Sure.
And now some of the companies involved in the race side, et cetera, they're trying to do 20, 30, 40 trucks a year. You see, so by default, for that to happen, you have to instantly pull back everything I'm referring to even make that happen, because now you need a team of individuals, so you cannot have an individual style.
Totally.
Because that fucks everything up in that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, unless the other way to look at it, too, is if you had a guy on the computer It's one of those guys, and they're building bad shit like that on the computer, and you're pumping out 20 to 30 trucks that look exactly like that because you have that guy that's doing all the clicking right there, that's putting sick ass style into things. You know,
that too, and then you have the backside battle of time consumption, cost. Like that's the other side of it too. That you could do a lot of sick boy stuff, and then once it starts to hit the book, so to speak, a lot of it has to be pulled out because of
that.
Cost,
and there's also just
time consumption.
There's the imminent duplication thing. The
instant duplication
now.
Instant duplication, yes.
Yeah, like even stuff I do, I'm like I already know certain styles and techniques, and you just see it quick. You know, it comes quick.
Yeah. But see, I'm not on so much of that side because I'm dealing so heavy into like the mechanical side that I don't really touch the more artistic side of stuff, typically speaking.
Yeah.
Or at least I haven't lately, you know.
Totally.
To where like that is still more derivative of like the guys that are, I guess you'd say, more artistic fabrication. Sure. You know. Yeah. As opposed to mechanical fabrication.
Sure. Totally. And that's bred from race stuff, right? I mean, that's just
race stuff is different because it's you have a specific goal in mind.
Yeah.
And everything else falls to the wayside to some degree.
Not so much of an expression.
Yeah, and that's why like the other thing too is I feel like there is a huge opening to bring back the prestige of really high-end luxury pre-runners. Mm-hmm. There is even that to some degree. If you look at like what's out there, like Weitzel, his stuff is so, it hasn't changed. Not that it's bad, but like there's an opening to create or to bring back some more of this extreme artistic appeal to even these trucks.
Sure.
Because right now there really is still the only same guys in the game that there were 10 years ago. Not that that's a bad thing. It's just that it's unlike the other side of the game where there has been far more segmentation and differentiation with builders.
100%.
And so that's just one aspect that is like, I think the next thing that we'll start to see progress is now that there's or at least I hope so. The problem is the sheer cost of that too, is you have to go well above and beyond the race stuff to make that viable.
Yeah.
Because the guys that are legitimately building the luxury pre-runners to pre-run, etc., they are already past a multi-million-dollar year race commitment to then now build, in essence, what is $1 million plus vehicle to some degree.
Sure.
On top of that commitment.
Yeah.
And that's a, you know, there's a few families that can legitimately do that. Yeah. So, you know, whereas back in the day, that was like more of a norm where you would have a new trophy truck built and a new pre-runner.
Sure.
That was normal.
Yeah, and, you know, Chevy and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and now I feel like that has separated. That's where I'm going with that, is that the luxury pre-runner stuff has been kind of gone to the wayside.
Yeah, and I think for teams, too, I see a lot of teams, they just pre-run in old trucks.
UTVs
and also old trucks. Have an old geyser or something, fucking go out in a geyser. Like, there's not a lot, like, not the same amount of fucks given with, like, nice amenities and leather, and there's not, like, that passion put into that stuff, you know.
Well,
even some of the newer pre-runners, like I've seen built by some of the bigger brands, they're like very basic inside, you know, like floors, no carpet, no, you know, like just meat and potato style, you know.
Like it's too far on the side of just a pre-runner for racing.
Yeah, a utility vehicle, if you will.
Yes, and that is kind of what I was saying is I would love to see a rebirth of that, is where, like, remember when Stewart was first doing the Raptors?
Totally.
And do you remember that truck that was built for Baldwin? The black one?
Not offhand, no.
It was a luxury pre-runner built for Baldwin, Nick Baldwin, to be clear, not the other Baldwin. And I can't even, it got shipped overseas.
Yeah.
But that was like kind of that heyday when there was a lot of artistic appeal to
that's when I took all that in. And that's when I was a sponge with that. I took all that. And I remember two guys here, like I remember they had, I think they built a 4-door F-150. It was like an 04, and it had isolated shock mounts. Like chrome isolated shock mounts front and rear, like on poly bushings, you know, like but all beautiful, you know, rich, thick leather, like analog gauges, you know, like all that good stuff.
And I believe that was a widened cab truck where they had cut the cab and widened it.
Yeah, and then, you know, one of the, like that, those, if there's one thing I'm into over everything in off-road, period, it is luxury pre-owners like that.
I would agree. I wish I could do a lot more luxury pre-owner stuff.
They're awesome. But that's the thing is
it's the pinnacle.
It is, and it's also like, I don't think race trucks are cool. I don't.
It takes a certain sort of, it's a different mentality, and it's a different thing.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
I think they're a tool, and they're used in a field, and that's what that is. Mm-hmm. But it's like, I don't get any feelings from race trucks. Like, I see them, you know, like they're next door. They do nothing to me.
I agree. I like it, but there is no comparison to the luxury pre-owner side.
And I like things that resemble a vehicle, like something that you see on the street, something that like closed doors, and just that whole feeling like it's like a hot rod, you know, it's like a super modified hot rod.
And the thing with the luxury pre-owners is it goes back to what I was saying earlier, is it really does open up an opportunity to bring that individual style back that we have lost, unfortunately, in the industry.
Sure.
Because remember, it was very difficult to build race trucks.
Yeah.
Back when Porter was doing stuff, Geyser, etc., it was not an easy feat to start a new truck, build a new truck, complete a new truck. Whereas today, not that it's easy, it's so much more streamlined or advanced in the fact that the cookie cutter aspect of it has changed that to where it's eliminated that. But like the luxury pre-runner side, even though it in theory platform wise is very similar, it can still be done in a fashion that has that individualistic touch
100%
that unfortunately doesn't exist in what would be considered like competitive racing atmosphere.
Well,
if you see where I'm going, like the competitive side of the racing side is purely focused on mechanical, and the derivative of that is everything has to be focused in that fashion to win. Mm-hmm. Whereas like back in the heyday, like you could be both, and that has changed.
Totally.
Yeah. Not that it's good or bad. It's just that's how refined the racing side has become. That it's just like other facets of racing where. Like in her family's team, etc., it is purely fucking numbers. Mm-hmm. Like it is straight fucking engineering, and that's it.
Yeah.
Everything else doesn't exist. Yeah. And so, with that said, bringing that back is, like I was saying, there's like a ripe opportunity, even though we're probably going to end up going into a recession, etc. But the bottom line is the individuals that can afford these, I feel like that's not necessarily going away. Like, in other words, the guys I know that can afford this, the stuff they talk about is, like, getting ready to go buy more property when the recession hits, not worried about the recession.
Usually they make more money.
Yeah. And so, with that said, the point is there's going to be individuals with the capital to do this type of stuff and do this properly. Because the new game now is these sort of pre-runners are going to be $1 million plus, realistically. And that is a lot different than like when we were looking at stuff starting out.
Sure.
Not saying that the Stewart stuff was cheap or stuff like that, but the progression of cost, the progression of how things are these days, to build a legitimate luxury pre-runner, you're going to be in that range.
Yeah.
And that's probably, and that's not even really diving into like the all-wheel drive stuff. All-wheel drive, you're going to be well above $1 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. To do something that's on par of like a competitive mid-engine all-wheel drive luxury pre-runner, you're above $1 million. Easy. If you finish it out properly, not like I just want to build a utility vehicle, like actually get, the stuff dialed like you would in a luxury or a hot rod, so to speak, to bridge that gap or eliminate the utility mindset and bring it into the hot rod side.
Yeah.
You're going to be way past $1 million to do that properly.
Yeah, it's wild.
And there's going to be, I feel like we're going to be seeing that more, I hope, as time moves on and as the industry almost starts to come back to blending some of that because it's gone so far cookie cutter with other stuff that the guys that can afford this do not want the same, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And so that segmentation is a natural progression of those types of individuals, and then obviously the market will follow and flow appropriately because that's where the work is for guys like us, and that's where we're going to end up. Is if you're focused on that stuff, that's going to be an avenue that I feel like the next 8, 9, 10 years, you're going to see that change, or at least I'm hoping, in that direction of bringing it back to where it was the heyday when you saw or someone was building a new luxury pre-runner. It was not just really cool in the mechanical sense. It was really individualistic style.
For sure.
That was touched.
It was like a coach building.
Yes. Yeah. And so I feel like our heyday for that is going to arrive soon because of the popularity of off-road. The amount of money in off-road now is on a percentage-wise or relatively speaking, is insane. Because even back in like, you know, the mid-2000s, late 2000s, you have to remember that's when like the pro touring stuff and hot rods was fucking huge.
Yeah.
All of those boomers are old now. They're not like building new shit.
Yeah.
It's like the guys that are more our age based, that are very successful, are now going to start diving into that.
Sure.
And so that I feel like we're about on the cusp of some of this to
that
happen.
Makes sense if you look at it like that in the age range and stuff, and in the passion and when that fed stuff and who it fed. And then that circling back, that's cool. Well,
because like I'm saying, 15 years ago, the dudes that were in their 50s, 60s that were building their dream project, remember, they grew up when hot rods were the thing as children.
Totally.
You see what I'm saying?
And that's why they looked like that.
Yeah.
They were finished like that.
And so they now have the capital in their 50s, 60s to do this, and that's how, in essence, the market follows. That's why pro touring blew way the fuck up out of almost fucking nowhere.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, it was like $500,000 pro tour build was normal. And that seems absurd. And then you had $700,000 cars. I mean, it started to get insane. You've seen it.
Yeah.
And so then you also simultaneously or more recently, you see that transition into the supercar stuff.
Sure.
Right? Well, what I'm saying is the off-road, I feel like we're at the cusp of this just starting because the guys with the capital
I get it.
are now transitioning into that age bracket where they can do that. So the next 10 years plus, like I'm saying, we're going to see this flavor, luxury pre-runner-esque stuff. I feel like there is it's just ripe for the picking for someone to just fucking grab that. Not that Weitzel's bad, not that Stewart's is bad, not that Geyser's bad, or Tisco, etc. I'm just saying that where they have seemed to move in the utilities side, there's an opening for something to bring that really nice high-end off-road hot rod-esque back.
Sure.
And like I'm saying, the individuals that can, or the individuals that have always wanted to do this are going to be far closer to having the capital to do this.
100%.
It's not 20-year-old kids anymore. Yeah. These are 50-year-old dudes, 60-year-old dudes, 40, guys from 40 to 60 years old that grew up looking at
Off-Road Magazine and Dirt Sports and
or Mickey Thompson series or whatever you want to call it.
Totally.
In some facet or another, and now the progression and the capital has started to meet, and I feel like we're at the start of that.
Sure.
And the unfortunate reality is guys like Craig, Stewart, etc., they were almost too far ahead of their time because I feel like the heyday for this is about to happen.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Whereas when these guys were coming up and building stuff, you have to remember the market was way smaller. Way smaller.
Yeah.
And the other thing, too, is, although I hate to say it, but like the UTVs have brought that full circle to us as well. Because now these individuals who have X capital to do this stuff legitimately, they will go rent a UTV or their buddy has one, get it, and then all of a sudden they start to get hooked. And then they start to escalate that snowball effect of spending money.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you the amount of people I've dealt with that in the last 5-6 years, it's always, a few years ago I had a Razor or whatever. And now all of a sudden they're budgeting $2.5 million for a race program.
Yeah.
And they fucking had a Razor 6-7 years ago, and that was like their first introduction to off-road.
Yeah, it's that gateway off-road drug.
Yeah, so that transition has created this sort of avenue for these individuals with capital to come into this side.
Cool.
Because we're about to hit, I don't think it's avoidable now, but we're going to hit a decent recession coming up here. So there's a lot of builders, etc. They're about to have some really fucking rough years. Because I saw everything that happened in 2008 to our side of the industry.
Yeah.
And that's rough.
Sure.
So like I've always been a big proponent of overhead and efficiency, even in what you're doing for fabrication or whatever, because our industry literally is a derivative of discretionary income. And at any point in time, the rich dudes could pack up their shit and go home.
Yeah, and I think, too, that it's much more detrimental to race cars. You know, that, like...
True.
Even when I think about, like, my clients, like, a lot of these guys, I don't think they have big hiccups with recession stuff, but also, like...
I'm not referring to you, to be crystal clear.
No,
I'm referring
totally.
to the industry as a whole.
I'm taking it as that.
Yeah.
I just like you know I am no dummy to thinking about these thoughts. So it's like when I think about the like firsthand, cut the race program. If anything has to go, cut the fucking race program. You know, like that's, hey, cut the race program. If there's any fat to trim, hey, just get the race program.
Yep.
But you know I can only think on my own end, and then I go, oh, well, you know, a lot of these guys, these are their things. These are their prized possessions, you know, like it's not something that it's just writing tax off. This is their shit. This is their passion. They love these things. You know,
higher end guys. Mm-hmm. It's the middle where the fat gets trimmed.
Sure. Yeah. Totally.
So like I'm saying, there's going to be some rough patches coming up here. And there's going to be some dudes that are caught with their pants down, totally fucking leveraged, you know, and struggling at best, even though they put on a good facade, and you're going to see them go to the wayside. And that,
totally.
You know, that's just how the market works. Yeah. It fucking eliminates all that.
Sure.
But, you know, I'm
like
also
a clean filter. It's like a cleanser.
Yeah.
It baptizes it.
And I'm the extreme version of that, whereas I like have like no fucking overhead.
Yeah.
Maximum fucking margin. Yeah. Try to do everything I can to like not have any sort of commitment on anything that could put me in a bad situation whatsoever. Because I've seen like what it's done to friends of mine and everything, you know, when it's all fucking good and great in heyday, you know, you expand and this and that and grow, and then as soon as that switch fucking clicks over into the red, that's a hard one. Yeah,
gotta survive.
Yeah, and this is a fun industry. This is not a real job. Yeah, and guys don't understand that. They think that they treat it like it's a real job when they don't understand that. Like, no, at any point in time, like when push comes to shove, we're getting cut first. Sure. You know, the wife ain't gonna do without. The race team goes first. Yeah. You know.
Totally.
And then the wife will do without if that's need be. You know.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's just the you have to know that going into it, and that's a part of like being in the industry as a career. You have to understand that. Sure. And everybody does. That's fabrication level all the way up to owners to you know, consultants to whatever you want to call it. You have to understand that this is just, it's basically a joke. We're getting to be paid to do what people dream about doing to some degree. Sure. You know? Yeah. And it's no different than like what Natalie deals with on their family's race team. There's ups and downs in the economy and this and that, and there's fluctuations in the business's capital expenditures and marketing costs, because, you know, they have corporate sponsors and things like that. And so obviously that has ups and downs. And then, but they have been, they're at 43 years. They are the most successful privately owned road race team in the world.
That's cool.
And so obviously there's been a lot of this through all of those. Yeah. And they have still maintained. But they also have a very dialed system of.
That's the thing. I think stay on top, like in every angle, like with stuff like that. Like the guys that are on top will always survive. Stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, it's the middle that gets.
I guess we're going back to that. You're totally on point.
Yeah, and the middle is where, you know, a lot of guys enter the industry under the get-rich-quick scheme to some degree or another, or they think they can because they see X, Y, or Z. It's like that.
I didn't know you could get rich.
That's where I'm going with that. Is from the people not in the industry. Yeah. You know, you are sitting there looking at these vehicles are X amount of money. Yeah. Like a Mason's 800 and change. Sure. Maybe 900 and change now, thanks to inflation. But and our truck, to be fair, our truck is now going to be up there. Yeah. Because when I first budgeted, it was under 8. But now, simply because of inflation, and since I started designing that specific trophy truck, everything is like just that much more. Everything just keeps clicking over. Yeah. $1,000 here, $1,000 there. So like, same fucking thing. But a few years have gone by, and now all of a sudden we're clicking, another $150,000 for identical shit. But I forgot where I was going with that.
Just staying on top and.
Well, like basically, if you're running
There's a lot of guys that come in to get rich quick.
Yes, there you go. So they're standing on the outside looking at these builds and think to themselves that they can come in and build this vehicle just a little bit cheaper, but the same, and undercut this guy because they're going to be a little bit more efficient. Or they see that, or here's the other classic. The individual who buys like a Raptor, right? And then goes and throws a ton of shit on his Raptor, spends $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 in shit on the Raptor, right? Mm-hmm. And then he sits there as the business guy, not judging the individual just because he bought a Raptor, I'm just using it as an example, and says, hey, if I'm the asshole spending this much money on this, why can't I just start a company selling shit to other Raptor assholes?
There you go.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Without understanding the backside of how fucking
the fundamentals,
low the margins are on everything.
Yeah, for sure.
That and how difficult it is to actually make money at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And then gets caught up in seeing like this quick money disappear. Like I just blew $80,000 on my Raptor and like what do I have to show for it? Like you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
And so he thinks, oh, I could easily do this and jump into that. Yeah. And so you'll see this kind of mindset happen and these guys will jump into it, whether it's building UTVs, 6100 trucks, fucking Raptors, whatever, and then they come onto the other side of the table and they're like, oh, fuck, and they caught with their pants down and don't understand, like, this is not an easy game. Like, this is a passion game, not a I make money, a lot of money game. Mm-hmm. I only know a few individuals who have legitimately gone from, like, 0 to 10-figure exits, where they're exiting at the said business with those sort of actual numbers in hand. Mm-hmm. Not like the business was sold for that because they have investors that chunk off a ton. But the point being is those individuals were doing very specific business structures and avenues that are not like what we're doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, like, you're never going to be able to exit with 10 figures doing fabrication on vehicles per se. Sure. Or building race trucks, or building luxury pre-runners. You can make a good living, but it's a passion-derived sort of career, and it will never change. Yeah. And the guys that try to change that, to think that they could do it better because they've had success in whatever business avenue that has created a situation where they can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a vehicle, try to transition over and get hit pretty fucking hard pretty quickly. Yeah. And I see that all the time because I'm on the R&D side of seeing all this stuff start. Mm-hmm. And everyone is like, oh, and then do this and that and this. And I'm just sitting there like,
here we go.
As long as the invoice clears, I guess, like let it ride. But it is fascinating because a lot of these individuals are incredibly smart people. But it has nothing to do with whether or not they're smart or dumb. It's just the industry choose this type of business model up. Yeah. And there's nothing you can do to change that. Totally. Because it's a passion-derived industry. It's not a business, like I would say. Mm-hmm. Like I said, as soon as I jumped over into doing steam boilers, I made like 10 times the money within fucking... It was a joke. Yeah. It was laughable. And I was like, but I hated life. Yeah. So there's always a trade-off to all that stuff.
And that's even with myself, like I need that quality of life every day. I need to be doing something with a purpose.
You want to wake up and show up at the shop, actually show up.
Well,
not like...
I eat, sleep, and breathe stuff. I look forward to every day, and I worked structural. I made okay money, but I felt like I wasn't contributing. Like I had more to contribute to the world, and even just like being a creative, if you will, like that kind of thing. Like I have to feed that shit every day, or else I'm just not a good human. Period.
Well, it would like crush you to some degree. Yeah, or just, it would be like a slow death.
Yeah, and that's what was happening because I like wanted to design cars and. This is just like a medium. It's not, it's like if you take it like an art thing, it's not that I'm into off-road shit. I just do this as a medium, and it works right now, and I don't know where things are going to go. I don't.
No, you just did it. You have a Chevelle.
I have a Chevelle, and I have a Lincoln, a hardtop Lincoln.
Yes.
Big ones.
And that's for the Chevelle's RFS. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have some stuff I need to do for that.
Yeah, and then we have a four-door hardtop Lincoln at my house, too, that's going to get done.
Okay.
So, and I, a lot of the stuff, like there's that kind of that manifestation kind of thing where if you want things, like if you're doing the right stuff in life, things start to appear or land in front of you, and it's like even I talked about hot rods. I'm like, I need to be doing hot rods. There's a really big market there. And even if you think about it like geographically, there's only so much desert around, and then there's only so many people in that desert that are going to want to pay $250,000 to $1 million for a vehicle to drive around in that desert.
Yeah.
You know, and then you go, well, let's look at hot rods, or let's look at road cars, and like you start looking at that, and it's like just, and it's the money's better, you know, and like your hourly can be better, and this, and people or guys will spend $100,000 on a paint job.
Oh fuck yeah. Oh,
$100,000 on a paint job, $125,000 on a paint job, like stuff like that. You know, you start looking at that, and so I don't mean to bring it back to myself, but every time you talk, I'm constantly, you know, thinking about my own position, and it's the thing. It's just like it's just been a ride. I'm not dedicated to off road in any way, shape, or form. But at
the same time, your business is not off road. Your business is you.
Totally, yeah.
And that's what I was getting at. Is that individualistic aspect of it is irrelevant to kind of like what you were saying, because it's like that can transition to whatever. Anything. It could be power boats.
Yeah.
You could be working on yachts.
Sure.
You
Homes,
could be
architectural stuff. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. That individualistic aspect of your eye, so to speak, doesn't just simply deteriorate because it's not off road.
100%. Yeah. And I'm like I've even like I did kind of go into your broiler stuff. Was it broilers?
Boilers. Steam boilers.
Okay, so same. I did a job in Santa Monica, up on one of the towers, the Ocean Avenue towers up there, in a penthouse. And it was like I needed to design and make stainless trim things for light fixtures. And like my profit on that was 4 times more.
Oh, fuck yeah.
For like 4 days worth of work than any off-road thing I've ever done. You know, and then I'm like, man, and I'm like, there's that fine line again, because then I go, well, I was LA certified for welding, and I know how to read drawings and do drawings, and, you know, I can do structural and architectural metalwork, and I know all this stuff. I can do all that. But where is that margin of, you know, are you going to make enough money to succumb not being happy doing your shit?
Yeah.
You know, like, because I'll still be able to get some good design out of that. But like at the end of the day, for me, I would just like to design stuff. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's, how are we going to design this? Like, let's make, you know, everything. How are we going to design the mic?
Yeah.
Like, I'm a designer. I like to design. That's it. I don't need to be, like, grinding on shit and welding shit. And just, I'm good. I just want to, I would design at this rate. I would like to design at that rate. You know? Okay. Give me the next one.
So then where do you see MCD going?
A firm. Like a design firm. You know, and then because even like when I started to think about the structure, like, or not structural, but the architectural stuff, like for residential or commercial, same thing. I don't even need to have I don't have to have a manufacturing facility that does that stuff. I literally can design that, and then I can outsource all that stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And if I was able to take on like boutique builds and have guys doing that stuff, that's cool too, you know? But I just design in general is what I care about. You know? Not off-road.
Yeah.
Not pre-runners, not any, just design, just designing things. I like cool shit. Like I like to make stuff look cool, you know.
And like that transitions to anything realistically.
Anything. Yeah.
There's no limit in that specific avenue.
Yeah, the only limit is if I'm passionate about it. That's it.
Yeah.
Because I won't be into it if it's like the same thing.
And that's a double-edged sword, because if you're not passionate about design in that aspect, you're gonna fail.
Yeah, I'm going to internally fail.
Yes.
You know, just talk about showing up, you know, same kind of thing. If I'm not into some shit, I'm going to it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
It's not going to be good.
And so like you have to, again, and I still don't understand how some of the guys that I know, they can make a lot of money, but they're just fucking miserable.
Yeah. See,
absolutely miserable.
I'm not doing that.
And it just, I get it.
Yeah.
I understand, but I just, you know, at some point, I feel like, you know, you're kind of doing like a slow death. Yeah,
and I've like tapped in. Like I said, I went to Art Center, and I had to drop out in the like 2008, 2009 because my parents couldn't pay for that shit. They were going to lose the business, blah, blah, blah. First thing that had, well, not the first thing, but one of the things that had to go was paying for my tuition. And that same thing, like I just design in general. I've tapped into something now where I really enjoy, like I'm getting something internally from being able to build stuff like this, and then on top of that, and not in an egotistical way or like in a cocky way, but that's the one, like I feel like it's my gift I've tapped into, where I can, like, I don't have to think that hard to get like a result that I'm doing.
That's anything
it's
that you're
autopilot.
passionate about.
It's autopilot.
It creates that scenario.
Yeah, and so like it's not. I'm not keen to off road. It works right now, but it's just a transitionary thing. It's so wide open right now. I don't even. I'm gonna just ride the wave
because you're positioning things correctly for yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You're not trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Sure.
So you're not trying to take what you are in essence and force that into a business structure where you're more or less manufacturing widgets.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to make that cheaper, faster, better than the 7 other widgets.
Sure.
You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
It's 2 different things.
Yeah.
And so if you complement, and both of them can be incredibly successful if they're complementary in themselves. So you can't take the one thing out of the other. Just like if you take the guy that's accustomed to making that business work and put him in your shoes, he's fucked. Mm-hmm. You know, he would probably die of anxiety relatively quickly because the creative aspect would, you know, is just not, his brain doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just everything's like just kind of still like a fun, I don't know, fun, but just like a journey. You know? And I don't feel like solidified in anything. When I was in college, like I wanted to have a design consulting firm.
Yeah.
You know? I wanted Morgan Clarke Design, and I wanted to have like just a building people go and, you know, or we have, you know, hey, you know, we have this. We want, you know, you to consult us on design, just like you consult, right, with a lot of engineering and race and parts and this and similar thing but different. And then if I can run operations where we have specific projects that are in-house, that's awesome. And then if there's huge ones or large scale things, then you just outsource. When my stepdad owned a fabrication facility that did structural and architectural, that's what we did. You know, companies, we'd either bid stuff for internal stuff, or we'd, you know, other companies would come to us and we'd build out their stuff. Yeah, and it was dialed. So it's not so much, I don't need to be doing this. You know, that's what we're doing right now. So that's all.
Well, and you could transition to getting more guys under you to some degree to tackle a lot of that as you transition and step outward to build the structure and more of your vision. Totally. But it's not going to happen overnight, and you can't just jump ship right away. It's going to take massaging.
Totally, and I think it can be a very, like a clean transition. Mm-hmm. And because, again, I do need to be doing stuff. Like, I don't want to not work.
Yeah.
You know, that's not me. Like, if I'm not working, I'm going to be working. You know, like, it's just somehow.
Yeah.
For my own peace of mind and just to, you know, body's in motion, stay in motion.
Yeah, and you're, like, ingrained in it to where it's like a subconscious aspect of motivation that keeps pushing you forward because you're physically there and doing it too, as opposed to being on more of the mental side of the design aspect too. Yeah. And so that's like a yin and yang effect to some degree. And if you go too far on one side of the table, the whole thing could implode. Yeah. You know, you don't want to force yourself into being a grunt worker while simultaneously force yourself to being like a grunt worker creative, where now you're just trying to pump material out just to pump it out, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's a totally different, well, like that you could fail in essence. And then you create a situation where now you don't want to show up, or you have animosity towards what you've built, so to speak. And that's like the worst case scenario.
That sounds terrible.
It happens. Ugh. I mean, I see it all the time with business owners where they have worked so hard to get to a certain point, or where they thought was like where they needed to be, and all they basically did was put themselves into a corner that created animosity for what they had built. Yeah. And then what the fuck do you do? You don't want to show up. You don't want to do this. Sure, you may be making good money, but like, you know, you have this thing that you want fucking out of your hair. You know, and even though it's more profitable now than ever, but you fucking hate it.
Yeah, you got an anchor attached.
Yeah, and that is and even more segmented, because obviously it's difficult to be successful in general, but that's an even more segmented aspect of successful individuals that I have noticed in my short time, so to speak. Yeah. And that the ones who are truly successful have blended that yin and yang of passion to making sure they still get, you know, make money, so to speak. 100%. Yeah. And then on top of that, still make sure they have time for kids, still make sure they have time for the wife, all that stuff that still has to be there to like kind of fulfill that. Yeah. Like, in other words, like not everybody can be like a Musk, where they're almost like that sort of robotic. Mm-hmm. esque deal.
Real robotic,
yeah. And you know, you can be very successful without being one of the most wealthy billionaires.
Totally. The support thing too, like, you know, I think it's weird because I feel so dependent on having a household that needs to be in order. Mm-hmm. And that's like so much of my success for my mental state every day and things, but it's...
Oh, I'd be a mess without Natalie.
I know, but it's at the same time, like, what a weak motherfucker. Like, it shouldn't matter how my shit is or this. I should be good inside and this. But now I'm like, oh, like, I feel like I'm like this big vase that it like tailors the glue. And, you know, like, and if my home is the glue, and if the glue is not there, the thing just goes, and just, you know, it's gone. So
I used to think the same way.
Yeah.
And then as I started observing more of the people that I would say are actually successful, not just they have a lot of money, I'm talking about successful, it was like they would be fucking nowhere without their wives.
See, it's crazy because I'm like going through that where I know, like, now I know, like, if something's even up with, like, if Tay or something, like, we have something going on, like, I squash that shit immediately. I need to fix it. Yeah. Because I know, like, I'm running at full steam most days where I'm like, if that is not good, I am not, like, I can tell it's off. You know, like, I can tell, like, I'm off of a rail, you know, like, just not doing it. It's interesting, but that's so important, you know, just.
It is. And
it really is.
I used to think that, or taking, like, that pseudo Jesse James approach where it was like, you know, you're solo and you're doing everything kind of like your own to some degree. Yeah. And like I'm saying, I always thought that the inverse side of it was like for pussy bullshit. Like these dudes are just jerk-offs, you know? Yeah. And that it was like you were more or less like the man of the equation, so to speak. And I'm struggling to find the words for it, but basically like that, like the guys that did this right, so to speak, were like, it was all them, everything. And that's just how it was. Like these are like the superstar guys. Yeah. And as you get older and the guys that are successful, you start to realize like, no, like one, it's a fucking team. And two, they have a significant other that is like legitimately like their support structure and backbone. Yeah. And that if that wasn't there, like they would more or less crumble. Yeah. And the guys that are truly successful admit that and explain that in detail.
Yeah, and that's how I feel like it. Same thing, you know. And it's so important to me. But also having someone that supports you, you know. Like I'm sure with Natalie too. But like even, you know, some people will ask me. I've had like a slew of times like, is your wife like, is she good with you working this much, or you know, is she good like with you? And yeah, 100%. Like a ride or die on board. Yeah, you know, not an issue of any sort, you know, like supporting the fuck out of me, you know.
Did she come from a family that was like entrepreneurial or had their own business or anything?
Okay. Her dad owned a boat dealership. That was it.
But that's like pretty entrepreneurial.
No, yeah, he's always been.
As opposed to, you see what I'm saying?
Well, I guess, no, you're totally right, because dad owned a boat dealership up in Shasta, and then Grandpa, who she's much closer with her grandparents than she is with her parents. Grandpa owned his own electrical company, and he has a wife of 50 years marriage that supported the shit out of him like through the whole thing.
So these are not W-2 people, is what I'm going with that.
Yeah, totally.
And so that mindset is different. Natalie was not.
That's interesting.
She came through. Her family was a privately owned race team. They owned Road Racing World magazine. She's never worked a quote-unquote real job. She worked for the family, and up until now, we have our thing. Yeah. Like, she literally is still trying to quit from the family race team. Yeah. But the point being is she was brought up in a household that is a non-W-2 household. Yeah. And in that, there's certain things that, like, there is no clocking out. Mm-hmm. If you're a passionate business owner, like that doesn't exist. Yeah. There's, like this morning, Sunday, I was working on stuff. Last night I was working on stuff.
I worked 6 hours this morning. Yeah. I got to work at 6:30.
When you leave, I'm gonna go do more work. Yeah. And now fortunately I can work in my boxers on my laptop in the living room. So I've created that structure, right? Sure. Yeah. But she understands that like when shit has to get done, shit has to get done. Totally. And she understands where I want to go and what we're building.
Yeah, and you couldn't have said it better. And that's the same program I have, and that's what I'm like so grateful for.
Yeah, and there's other individuals I know that their significant other does not get that, And not that it's a bad thing. It's just they're in a W-2 mindset. And so it should be a 9 to 5 and nothing else.
Yeah.
And if it goes past that, it's like faux pas. Like it's looked down upon.
Yeah, no, and I deal with like a lot of people like that where I'm like, oh my God, I'm so grateful I don't have that kind of situation like in my life, you know?
Yeah. And so finding the person, if you're a self-employed individual or business owner and finding a person that's in that similar fashion or mindset is almost the cornerstone to real success.
Sure.
Other than maybe outliers. Because like Elon Musk technically would be like an outlier because he doesn't really have a significant other-ish thing or whatever the fuck you want to call it.
That's that lizard person shit though.
There you go. But that's not the majority of successful business owners. You know? And so without that structure, most people would fall apart.
You're totally right about that. And when I started looking at it like and expand my horizons on that concept, like my old boss at Cali Customs, Adam, like he had his chick, like or his wife Kathy, or like she'd pull up and she'd like restock shit at the shop and like blah, like
Does he still work on the docks when you were there?
Yeah, he still does. Yeah,
still does.
And then Joe Black was next door and he owns Timberline Construction, and his kids work for, and it's like you start to see it, and like there's a huge family dynamic that's playing a crazy role in like the success of it, you know?
Yeah. And
it's awesome.
The individuals in that, mindset, it's they think different. Significant others that complement that, create or help build that, as opposed to create a deterioration of that. Yeah. And that's where you see the guys that end up being less successful is because not that it's a bad thing. You know, there are a lot of great W-2 employees and people. The vast majority of people do just fine in W-2 type situations. Sure. But the people that, like, I can't have a real job. I do not function like that.
Yeah, same.
And so I had to find someone that does not function like that. And she's never functioned like that. Yeah. She grew up with the understanding of this business as a structure and understanding that 9 to 5 doesn't exist. Yeah. I mean, for fuck's sake, she grew up in the racing industry. Like, there is no nights and weekends. The whole fucking thing is, next race is X. You do everything you can till X. Yeah. And then you do it all over again for the next chunk. Sure. And then it does all over again for next season. And then off season is really just cleaning up all the bullshit from when you were racing. Yeah. So there is no fucking off season, you know?
Yeah, totally.
And that's just one of those things that like you can't teach a significant other that. You can't build that in a relationship if that individual does not already understand that mindset and then support that mindset. Yeah. And then if you try to build a business or be that individual to do this with someone that's not that mindset, it's like just fucking rubbing your face in sandpaper. You're fucked. Sure. Yeah. You know, and I see guys.
I was gonna say it's abrasive.
Yes, it's just one of those things that like I see them. Like I have a friend that's doing that right now and has been over the last 5-6 years since he got married, so to speak, and it's rough, dude, because she does not get what he's trying to build. Yeah. And he has been, I guess, held back, not bootstrapped, but you know what I mean? Like strapped down for what he could be doing simply because there's sort of this mismatch. Yeah. To some degree. And, you know, that's partially why I've been doing so well is like I have Natalie's support structure and her smarts, so to speak, on a lot of the business side too. Yeah. That complements everything I'm doing so I can focus on my strengths and she can back me up on all my weaknesses. Yeah. If that makes sense.
It totally, and it's same with like I think that some of my thinking sucks sometimes, you know, like I can build stuff and do a lot of design stuff, but like even my thinking, I rely on Taylor sometimes. I'll bring stuff up and she'll be like, "You're tripping, blah blah," like, dude, you know, and she'll give me that extra. That's part of my weakness, you know. She'll streamline some of my thought process to clear things out. You know,
people who are creatives typically have way too much going through the head, and they struggle to get that down. Yeah, and so that sort of filter is rough, and people that cannot master that filter are the guys that burn themselves into the corner, typically speaking, at least that I've seen, and I've been around for a short period of time and have been exposed to some of the most creative, smartest individuals who just burn themselves into the corner because they don't have an avenue or someone to help them pull some of that, simplify some of that, or just slow them down.
Yeah. Ground you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you could almost think yourself to death.
Oh, I mean, I still do that every day, but I manage it and I'm aware. You know, so I know when I'm like, all right, dude, come on. Like, how many times are we going to think about that same shit fucking 1,000 times?
Yeah.
Till I'm done. Let's stop.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But that's a part of it too. And because it's like the ultimate partnership to some degree.
It is.
If you are self-employed and married, that is your business partnership.
Sure. Totally.
And so if it's not understood in that fashion, it's going to be rough.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. I mean, I share, like, she knows all my clients. And
Natalie does my fucking bookkeeping.
Yeah, I know.
I don't do any accounting. I don't even know what our bank accounts are.
Yeah, I share all that stuff, and it's good because I guess it really is a partner. I mean, she's my life partner, so that makes sense. But it's just.
Does she work elsewhere?
No,
or?
It stays at home.
Okay.
Like she worked. She was W-2'd, like getting like doing 9 to 5s, working for Bank of America corporate for like a while and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then like when we had Logan, she had her leave, and then she went back for a little bit, and then I was like, dude, you need, like, I saw how much Logan grew with her, like, and bonded and like just was able to be raised better. And I was like, just stay home, like, you're good, don't work ever again, you're good. Like, I will figure this shit out, just work or just be home, like, and that's what we've done since then. Yeah. And that's, you know, it's a full-time job, so.
That is basically, like I'm saying, she still technically does stuff for for her family team, but like she stays at home, stay-at-home mom. Yeah. But she'd probably kill me for saying that, but because she does a lot of work in between dealing with the kids and running the books, because she does all of the processing for DIY Off-Road. Sure. I couldn't even tell you like what is going on because she handles all that processing. Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah, and so like for obvious reasons, that opens up a lot of avenues for me to work on other stuff instead of being bogged down on both. But to be fair, like she's an accounting mindset. Mm-hmm. She loves that shit. Yeah. And it's very, I don't even know how the fuck you could be passionate about that, but she seems to be passionate about that side for everything. Stuff. Yes. And so my weakness is the accounting and things like that. I fucking hate it.
Yeah, I have my guy who does, he is my business manager almost, where he's on my payroll, and I have him do all the sales and purchasing, and if I need something, I don't even order it. I just send him a text, you know, and then it, like, that streamlines stuff, and now he does all the merchandise too, you know. So it's like I've been narrowing my focus back.
Which I feel like you could definitely do more of that with the branding that you've kind of created. Yeah. With like this sort of, and it's not just branding; it's more like intimate branding, because you basically like bring people into your world to some degree. So it's not like they're just buying a shirt or something that's from X brand. They're buying Morgan. If that makes sense. Sure. Because you've created, like with the YouTube stuff, you're more intimate with how you're bringing them into what you do and your sort of studio, so to speak, as opposed to like, ooh, I like that builder or whatever. It's a little different. Yeah. So like that's an avenue I feel like as you move forward is only going to get busier. Totally. You know? Yeah. And I would assume sales have been higher now than they have before on merchandise.
Yeah, no, they're good. And same like the apron is a big thing.
Yes. Yeah, I looked into doing aprons too.
Yeah. And people, there's haters. I mean, I don't deal with like a lot of haters.
Who hates aprons?
There's people that will give you shit about aprons. What? Hey man, you barbecuing? Where you you know, like I don't have this stuff. I don't have this stuff in my life, but I have had it before. But no, the aprons on a pot, like we don't even. The positive note of that is I wear that for functionality. What were you saying?
I associate the aprons with like the guys who really do know how to fab from the old school stuff.
Totally. Most people do.
Dirt Sports with Jamie. There you go.
Jamie got me into aprons.
That's what I was, and like the guys I knew that were the real fab guys wore aprons. And so like back in the day,
it's the most efficient thing you can do, period, fabricating.
Yeah, when you saw a shop or a builder that was all cleanly done and they were wearing aprons, you knew that they don't fuck around. Yeah. Yeah.
And the only time I don't wear an apron is in the summer usually because it's really hot. We don't have AC or anything. Yeah. But no, like just back to sales. Like I wore that apron everywhere, and people buy the shit out of those aprons. I've sold maybe 500 aprons, you know, over. I just do runs, whatever I can capital up for a run. But I have, and same thing with like shirts. I have like ideas. I would really love to put on shirts, like cool line drawings and things that it's just like a you know, time management. Where are you going to get these things done? You know, batting down the hatches.
Rich at Color Tech.
Well, Rich gets things done, but it takes me being on a Wacom tablet to really get stuff going first. You know? So it's just, there's a lot. There's just, that's why I say, like, I'm on, like, a journey right now, and there's just so much more to go. And it's exciting, but there's just a long way to go.
And it's like you have X amount of stuff you want to do, but you only have time for Y. And so it's hard to prioritize or hard to differentiate where is the best avenue from the multiple avenues you have in front of you.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult for anyone to tell you what is what, especially these days when things are so non-traditional business-wise, where if you would have, even 10 years ago, if you would have said that Joe Rogan was going to have X amount money on a contract for doing podcasting, you would have been like, yes, you're a fucking moron. Like, that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
So, like, this newfound avenue of business that is basically create your own avenue is like something our parents never had.
Oh, totally.
It didn't exist. Or it existed in a very slow fashion.
Sure.
You know, like you were building an electrical company over decades, where now you can build stuff much quicker.
Sure. Totally.
And that is like a gift that I don't think a lot of people understand to some degree. And so they spend too much time maybe on one avenue, or they struggle when they realize that they could divvy up multiple avenues and slowly, like you're saying, let the journey kind of sort itself out without trying to pick a rigid avenue at the beginning and just like you know, going to the grindstone no matter what, when it just doesn't seem like that's how things work these days.
Yeah, and I mean the other way, like financially, it's safer to have multiple streams of income.
Well, these days, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so it's like, you know, it's congruent, right, with that, because it's like if you're dabbling and trying out different shit, even if some of that shit fails, like you're trying it out, and then you have different things that are working and different, you know, like, and then you're not just like, oh, I do this, oh, I build that, and then you're just stuck, you know, and
I have
you're insane with
multiple streams of income.
Yeah.
I don't want to go through, I don't want to disclose everything on the podcast, but I created a differentiation to where I'm a be all right.
Yeah.
If shit hits the fan, I'm not worried about myself. I'm worried about friends of mine. I'm worried about guys that I absolutely love in both business and in life.
Yeah.
That, like I was telling you earlier, like that I see the writing on the wall, and some of these guys don't.
Yeah.
And it's hard to explain that to another business owner without being a piece of shit, basically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just people are more or less not receptive to hearing, you know, criticism in a constructive, loving, accepting way.
It's an odd situation, but you know, I don't know. I just think differently in business, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I can't expect everyone to think similarly, or to be as crazy in some aspects. So I can't, or to be as risk taking. Sure. I've always been pretty not really concerned with risk. Yeah. And now it's different with the kids and the wife thing. But like at the same time, I've created bases to where now I can start to be far more risky with things because I have like a base structure in place.
Foundation.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Which again, that just comes with the bullshit of getting kids. Because when I was younger, it was like basically 100% risk, not giving a fuck.
Yeah.
You know, and that was also like, as you remember, when we were starting out to some degree, that's like when the whole Jesse James thing kind of hit full steam and the documentaries hit, and it kind of shed light on like you could be like that asshole and forge your own path.
Yeah.
And that was not only acceptable, but that could be a road that you create to, you know, something very big or something significantly bigger than yourself, so to speak, where like our parents didn't have that other than like the obvious stuff with like rock stars or things like that. In other words, it created this sort of vision of rock stars outside of what are rock stars, if that makes sense.
Yeah, be your own rock star or whatever. Sure.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And now the social media and things like that, this is where I was going with that, is it's created like you could be the rock star of fucking plumbing. And if you would have said, to our parents, like, I'm going to start a business, but I'm going to be the rock star of this specific facet of plumbing.
Yeah.
They'd think you're fucking nuts. And like, that doesn't exist. There's no way. And next thing you know, you could have 1 million followers on Instagram being like the rock star of a certain plumbing thing.
Yeah.
It's the craziest fucking thing to me.
That's cool. I love that.
Yeah. But that path created itself.
Sure.
So to be able to do that stuff, it's not like that specific individual set out in the very beginning, like, I'm going to be the rock star of plumbing on Instagram. Like, no, those types of things naturally progress or show themselves while someone's kind of finagling. Like, my path is I've been in multiple industries. I've owned restaurants. I've owned boiler companies. I've had my hand in a surf company too, and just a ton of different shit to find a path that works, so to speak, but I kind of let it create itself to some degree. Yeah. As it is trying to like fight.
Totally. That
specifically.
Makes sense.
And on the same side too, I take on a lot of risk. So to be fair, it's not like if you can't stomach the risk and you can't stomach that aspect, it's also not the game for you to be in.
Yeah. Remember sacrifice, do to get, right?
So yeah.
It kind of works like that too.
And most people are just not built that way.
Yeah.
Or they don't understand enough and get themselves in a bad position quickly.
Yeah, there's a lot of angles. I think fear too, like for myself, like, and I'm still on the brink of this stuff where I haven't lived like the life like you have right now with taking risks and ventures and things, and I have a lot more to go, and I'm sure I'll have fuck ups too. But I think fear, like with people, that's a huge thing.
Caring what people think, what people say, stuff
fear,
like that.
Just people being in fear. Like I just lived in fear of a lot, fear of the unknown, fear of success, fear of being uncomfortable doing something different. Like just fear in general is like just an insanely crippling thing. But it's also can be positive.
But the most successful people find comfort in discomfort.
Well, yeah, I've lived like that. So,
yeah. And the path you're on, like I was saying, is you're creating a very intimate brand. Yeah. Inside of an industry where that arguably has disappeared. Yeah. And that also goes back to that stylistic factor of that individualism with builds. Now, that's kind of always existed in the hot rod side to some degree. Yeah. But it disappeared entirely in off-road last 10 years. Yeah. And you're creating that again for like the kids that don't even fucking know what we're talking about. Sure. Like you start saying some of these older names, like they don't know, but none of these guys know because they were introduced to off-road. Well, like what did you bring up? You just said something. Oh, Alpha. Burke. Yeah. And you were like, oh yeah, they've been in here a while. And I'm like, dude, they're kind of new.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. And that's how I look at it, only because I know all of the guys that were decade before them. Sure. And that's just like that weird dynamic that these guys that are entering this stuff now have no idea where a lot of this stuff came from. I was talking with that about Nestor, about these style cues, these aspects, the derivatives, the stuff where this stuff derived from. The guys that you talk to now don't even know that because you're so far removed. You're 20 years removed now.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
I've talked to like even people that are like in the industry, like about older builders and trucks. Mm-hmm. They don't know, like even Nestor stuff or Plank stuff or like just
no one knows who Plank is.
I'm just reference wise or like people don't know these things.
Tom and SI.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to do a Legends thing with him too, but he's gonna be tricky one to.
Last I heard, he was a cop.
Well, he's an LA detective.
Oh, he's a detective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just know he's a lot of these guys, and I'm, I obviously more than I do, but they're not so good with the talking side of things and the personable side of things. A lot of people that build stuff.
No, these are. This is what I was referring to by they put themselves into they burn themselves into a corner to some degree.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And so that's like even with like Dave Clarke, I did that thing with Dave Clarke, right? Mm-hmm. And then it's like I want to keep going, but a lot of these guys I'm gonna have to float these things because
one of the guys I want to talk to is Brian Cadella.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
that'd be sick.
But again, if you even say that name, most people have no fucking clue who that is.
Sure, old school dude.
And he's in essence like the guy that created what I do, if that makes sense.
Cool.
As a engineer consultant to some degree, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And so that combined with these other older builders that, like I'm saying, it's so far removed from style derivatives that the guys today are copying this builder over here who copied this builder who then copied this builder.
It's not even.
And so they're so far removed that you could, like, they think they're copying this guy when in reality they're copying 2 or 3 guys removed from him.
Yeah.
And that's just the progression of where we're at by default of time. Sure. And, you know, that's only going to get worse. And even with that said, like, the UTV stuff has obviously, like, transitioned that a lot faster because the UTVs are so much newer. So so many more people jumped into that side of the game. By default of the money was showing up in that avenue. And then, like, obviously now you're starting to see the UTV stuff and the builds, like, start to transition into being less like what I call, like, sandfaggy. And, like, more like, you know, traditional-esque off-road fabrication. Not saying that it will be on par, to be fair, but you can see that people are putting more effort into it, and you're starting to see guys starting to build some more of that individualistic style into little aspects here or there, and it's starting to pull away from some of the cookie cutter stuff. Even though, to be fair, like, that's the number one way to make money in off-road right now is cookie cutter UTV shit.
Well, I think that's why, you know, just a lot of that has been pulled away. You know, same with the luxury pre-owners and stuff. It's just a money thing. Build this and this, race team this and fast this, and the passion's gone.
It's like the other aspect too is it used to be like the brag was that you were building X, right? And now the brag is I'm building 10 or I'm building 5 or I'm building. You see what I'm saying? It's or like I sold 2 rollers or I sold this. It's always now it's like a derivative of more volume.
I see. I don't
than
do
it is specifics.
Any of that shit. That's
well, I'm not referring to you.
I know.
What I'm saying is as my observation as a whole. The dick measuring went from I'm building a trophy truck to no, I have 5 on order, 8 on order, 10 on order.
Jesus, You
see what I'm saying? And that's changed because I remember the day I was at Blitzkrieg when Nate and his partner had started their first truck. And I'd asked them about it, and they were like, yeah, we're building a trophy truck. And, like, that little giddiness inside them, like fucking children, like they had finally got to being the guy that's get to build a trophy truck. And so, like, I feel like that is gone. So now it's like I have X on order. Not that, like, not to downplay, like, what Spencer's doing, but, like, one of the first things they said to me was, we have 5. I'm like, okay. So, like, again, right off the bat, like, you're going with that type stuff. So I feel like that is just, again, totally different than when I entered the industry, when the connotation of the pride and just the specific. I totally
understand what you're saying,
And this is the same thing like I'm dealing with our situation on, like, the tower side, and that we're focusing on the specific, not focusing on volume. We're trying to build a ton of stuff. We're focusing on trying to specifically avenue the best we can.
You flagship something first. You know, that's a flagship.
And even moving forward, like, we never are going to do anything like we're like what Brenthel's doing or stuff like that, where they're trying to pump out 20 trucks.
That's pretty wild.
No fucking way. Like I capped our structure at 4 employees. That's it. And I feel like build a team to do this stuff that I can just easily manage while still doing my other business avenues. As opposed to trying to brag about having all of these vehicles that we're building and stuff like that. And I just feel like that has deteriorated the passion of the industry that is like it's like the starving for this again. And I'm sure you've seen it because once you started transitioning into some of this, you're getting so much more eyeballs and attention because of how different what your mindset is relative to what has become the norm of our industry.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I pride myself on that. You know, design and branding.
You are literally building shit that not a single fucking thing is the same. You understand how unique that is. Most builders, it's the complete inverse. They're trying to stack the same exact fucking thing in every bay.
I think there's ways to do that with certain things, you know, but not dressing and finishing and not chassis design. You know, I mean, to an extent, even chassis, but still, and picking the right vehicles. You know. There's not. And that's again, it goes back to like fiberglass cabs and shit. I don't fuck with any of that stuff. I like unique shit.
Yeah, that's the other thing why I really like the luxury pre-runner stuff over race truck stuff. If I was going to build a personal vehicle, I would build a luxury pre-runner before a race truck.
And it's the same thing. You get a real unique win off that.
Well, to be fair, that is my dream. Not race truck. I want to build a luxury pre-runner.
Yeah. Well, do it.
I've thought about starting that soon. I have a few other things I want to deal with business-wise first.
Yeah.
And then I want to start that. But what I actually want to do would be an all-wheel drive.
Yeah.
Which we're doing one, too. That's last on our current list. But I have started designing it in that avenue. But I would do, if I was going to do one, it would be personal. So it would be...
Understood.
Everything would be my own in fashion. So that would be something that would be more passion-based than anything else.
And I get so much from, for myself, I mean, I'd like to have a personal thing, but honestly, I'm good. I like to just build them. That whole thing, the build is like a hunt, you know, it's like a chase. It completely wets my whistle.
But you're still building stuff. I've been so far removed from building stuff that I have.
You need that.
I'm starved for that.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
that's partially why I got convinced to do this thing with the Towers family, because now I can kind of get my foot back in it.
Yeah.
Without actually getting my foot back in it, if that makes sense. Yeah. It's like cheating.
Yeah.
And now even more, I want to go back to building.
It's a life hack.
Yeah. And so now I want to get back to doing fab work even more now that I'm getting back into that. Sure. And so I was thinking, like, by the time I hit 40, that's when I want to start my truck. Probably start designing it in the next few years. I'm going to do an 05 extended cab Silverado, because that was my first pre-runner. Wide and body.
So cat eye.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, wide and body, all-wheel drive, mid-engine.
Yeah.
And
then what transmission? Albans?
Well, I can't tell you by that point. This is obviously going to be probably 5 or 6 years down the road.
Yeah, I just didn't know.
Now, the one I developed or helped develop, however you want to call it, working with Hollinger for the one that we're using in our trophy truck and big pre-runner.
Gotcha.
And that, I posted a picture of it. It's the X12 core gearbox with what can only be described as like an offset gear-driven V-drive in the front of it.
Yeah, that's why I was asking, just because there's weird details.
It's a lot of weird shit.
Yeah.
And so that one Hollinger is building. Hopefully they can make more and sell more, but the reality is, like, there's not a lot of people building these $1 million trucks per se. Sure. So I know we're going to have a few of them, but and the class 1s are running an all-wheel drive variant of the X12, but this is all brand new Hollinger stuff. So we were working with Albans, etc., but they couldn't really deliver what we wanted to some degree. And then X-Track, I felt like is, well, I'm not the only one that feels that way, a little underbuilt for what we're doing in these all-wheel drives. The only next natural progression would then be to get a Mason Matic.
Yeah.
And they will not sell me one. So, which I understand.
Yeah.
I had that conversation with them, and I get it. They view me as a competitor now.
Totally.
And so he did not want to sell me any drivetrain components. And I was like, well, if I was in your shoes, I'd do the same fucking thing. But I didn't want to say that, because what I was actually thinking was like, holy fuck, these guys think I'm a competitor?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Cool.
Like, you see what I'm saying? I was like a little kid, like, dude, this is like not bad.
Yeah.
You know?
That's sick.
And so, so long story short, that's why we ended up with the Hollinger stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. But again, I'm dreaming. You know, you're talking $1 million vehicle.
Dreaming's fine.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think that's the thing in life. Like, I feel like I dream on all kinds of shit, and like I just shoot big with stuff, and you can do it. And as long as you just have the right people around you and they support you, like that's the thing. Is like getting your circle right, where everybody's trying to support you, even if they're not thinking the same. They're not like, why would you do that? Are you sure you can do that? You don't. That shit is terrifyingly detrimental to anything I'm doing. You know, like I have like a team, you know, of everybody that's like, yeah, okay, that sounds sick. Like, okay, let's do that, you know, and there's a trust there, you know. And
how many guys do you have now?
I have 4.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, Joey's one of those, and then I have 3 working under me at the shop.
But is Joey a subcontract-esque deal, or is he an actual, like, employee?
He's on my payroll.
Okay.
He does.
Does he understand how the law works once he gets to 5, right?
He's no.
Okay.
No.
So has anyone explained that to you?
No, I haven't gotten there.
Okay.
It turns into.
We can talk about that off camera if you want. Okay.
Absolutely.
Because there's an interesting caveat in the state of California once you have 5 on the books.
Well, the number one thing is, as far as like how intensive design is with everything like you talked about, and every single thing needing to have some kind of critique and special design, I cannot physically have another employee, just because I would never, if I'm not intending on working at all, I can run more guys. But at this point, I have a project every day, and these guys have a project, and I'm doing a circuit. You know? And I'm thinking about how long each you know.
And you're doing unique stuff. This is not cookie cutter, so they are legitimately having to have your hand at least help.
I am navigating all of the ships.
Yes.
And then I am like the puppet master.
Yeah.
And so I can, some things take, you know, maybe I give a guy, and I draw stuff and I sketch stuff. We'll wrap this up because I got to get Logan out there. But
yeah, I know.
I put a really valiant effort into communicating what I need done, but some stuff might take 30 minutes, some stuff might take 4 hours, and then I have to I navigate that. So I go, how much can I get him to do right now where I can go back and do my thing? So that's the thing, is I can only, unless I want to retire all of my doing stuff physically, then I'm maxed. You know, I'm capped out right now.
Huh. Well, Natalie can explain to you the 5 thing. Sure. So that you understand where that goes moving forward, because that is something that you have to keep an eye on, unfortunately, in this state.
Totally.
And how you structure the business. Are you a C Corp? How are you structured? LLC?
LLC.
Yeah, you're going to want to move that over. You do not want that. You're going to want to go to S Corp.
Yeah.
But if you got questions, I can help you with that stuff.
Word.
Off camera and stuff.
I have a new firm that I'm working with that's doing all like my bookkeeping and stuff and taxes. So.
But that's not the conversation I'm referring to. I'm referring to more root structuring as opposed to like the bookkeeping.
Totally.
Bookkeeping is fairly straightforward. X
They're
and
just
Y.
all tied in with my shit.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah. Well, what I'm talking to would be more like a conversation you would have with someone that is more help guiding the business structure to complement what you're doing and where you want to go.
Perfect.
So in other words, that would be more like a specialty inside of like the accounting or finance side, as opposed to like the bookkeeping is more like the grunt worker, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so those are different conversations with different types of people.
Sure.
But yeah, we can definitely wrap this up. I just realized the timer isn't even on this, so I have no idea where we're at on time.
Well, I think I got here around 2-ish.
We're probably like 2 or 3 hours in.
Yeah, it's 5:30.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Well, regardless, I appreciate you coming down. I know it's a fucking trek.
Oh, it's all good.
And so I do really appreciate that.
I don't ever bitch about SoCal stuff because it's like driving's easy. You know,
I've driven up to your shop several times, and coming home, it's like
it's
fucks
the traffic.
you.
The traffic is the thing I can't stand. If you tell me I gotta drive somewhere for an hour and a half, 2 hours, I have no problem sitting in a seat and holding something and pressing a pedal. But it's that traffic that is like, nope.
Why do you think I basically work from home?
Yeah,
more or less.
Yeah.
The race shop is next to Mason.
Yeah,
4 minutes from here, and then the other shop I'm looking at, because we have 2 shops that I'm opening. That's like another block away.
Sure.
So
it's easy.
5 minutes, 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes is my structure.
Yeah.
And here's my home base.
I've narrowed it now. When I worked like the past jobs before I was doing this thing, I would drive from Montclair to Orange County, and it would be 37 miles, and it would take me an hour and 45 minutes each way.
Fuck.
Every day.
It drains you.
Every day.
Yeah.
You know, and now I'm reverse traffic, and I'm doing 12 to 16 minutes each way. Mm-hmm. That's insane for me. And I never get traffic unless there's an accident. So we're in a good spot. But no problem coming down here. It's nice talking to you.
No, I appreciate it. Like I was saying, this is just part of the thing I like to do for fun on the side of all the fucking 15 other things that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And Natalie let me buy all this shit. So, you know, that's a plus.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I can't really do much. Well, everything's a conversation in the business structure.
You got to run it by your boss.
Yeah. To at a minimum, at least respect her input.
Totally.
You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's wrap this up. I had to go take a piss, and I'm sure she's probably wondering, 2 hours and 50 minutes. There is a timer.
There you go.
Fuck yeah.
That's what's up.
Solid, sir. I'm cutting it here.
Bye.